To the faithful.
Touchdown! San Francisco!
To domination.
Steph Curry downtown again!
And to those who bleed orange and black.
It is out of here!
Good morning. This is Murph and Marcus. Brian Murphy and Marcus the Waterboy Boucher. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to the working people. And happy Friday to those early risers, rounding out a nice little Christmas week. This is not Murph and Marcus. This is Murph and Marcus Youth Edition, except for Raph replacing young Tony back in the studio. But I'm Greg Silver. He's Derek Papa. And after a shortened show yesterday, Derek, there are no bowl game interruptions. We are here from a true 6 to 9.
Greg, that we know of yet.
You
never know.
Three bowl games. We got 3 bowl games after this.
Yeah, starting at 9 a.m. It can't be ridiculous if they had like a 6 a.m. bowl game. But Greg Silver, I am up at this ungodly hour. It is 6 a.m. I can't remember the last time I've been up this early. I don't know who listens to radio this early, but we're here. And I don't have any coffee. Let's do this thing.
I still can't believe that you're not a coffee guy. I mean, it's a method of survival for me at this point. I've done one show with other Papa and Silver, and that was without coffee at Levi's Stadium. First day I went down there. One of the most flustered days I've ever been in my life outside of radio. So, yeah, it's a crutch. I'll admit it.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a coffee drinker since I've been young, man. I tried it a few times. It's not my bag, and I'm not an energy drink guy either. I'm all natural when it comes to life, my friend.
Well, hey, I respect it. And, we'll get into everything today. We got John Lynch joining us at 7:45, so that's going to be a real treat. We're going to have Mark Spears join us at 8:30, talk a little bit more about the Warriors, the Jimmy Butler desire to be held out of Miami, and then Pat Riley taking that back the next day. So a lot of noise going on around there. We could talk a little NFL Christmas. We're going to have some cooler of content / sounds played. Not exactly sure how it's going to technically be labeled here on what is the morning show on a Friday. And then we'll get to some Kyle Shanahan thoughts as he spoke to the media yesterday. And then we're going to wrap it up and hand it off to 3 bowl games. But I guess where we got to start, Derek, is just picking things up where we mostly focused yesterday. And that was the Warriors losing a Christmas thriller in a heartbreaking fashion to the Lakers. They went from 12-3 to now 15-14, and it's just kind of more of the same with a different group. No Klay Thompson, but still very Steph Curry dependent. Steph has one of his best Christmas games that he's ever had. He goes for 38 points. He hits 2 ridiculous shots to keep the Warriors in the game, and I love the comeback effort. They were down 9 with about a minute and a half left. I love the entertainment factor, but when it's in the middle of a losing patch like this, it's harder to be all mushy and sentimental about appreciating Steph Curry and instead feeling a sense of urgency that, hey, he still can play at this level. Maybe not every single night. He is older and he will be missing tonight against the Clippers, the front end of a back-to-back. So it's not like he's in the heart of his prime when he was a unanimous MVP, but the Olympics wasn't that long ago. Christmas was another reminder of what he can do. And the Warriors as a team and as a supporting cast have just been nothing all that impressive for the better part of 2.5 years.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, whenever you lose to the Los Angeles Lakers on Christmas Day, it pisses me off, Greg, because that's the team I hate the most. And it was so exciting in the fourth quarter, Steph doing his thing. And in the end, they come up short. Austin Reeves gets that layup, and you and I talked about it yesterday. I thought Johnathon Kaminga could have done more defensively to stop him from putting that layup in. I thought Andrew Wiggins could have done more defensively. And what really sucks about this game is that Anthony Davis only played 7 minutes and left with an ankle injury. You had Rui Hachimura playing the 5. You had Christian Coloco out there playing the 5, not to be confused with the lovely Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory. But yeah, like I said yesterday, if it was just an isolated thing of, this season's okay and they have a stinker at home against the Los Angeles Lakers, then no harm, no foul. But this is becoming a trend. They've lost 11 of their last 14 games. And GP2 is going to be out for a week on top of Steph Curry not being available tonight. So there's just so many issues going on right now. We thought this team had so much, bench depth, and with Buddy Hield and the DeAnthony Melton injury is becoming more of a problem than I thought it ever would. Dennis Schroeder's been a disappointment since he's been a Warrior, and it's just not enough coming off the bench. Brandon Pajemski, like I said, Buddy Hield. Kaminga, he's on and off again. Everybody goes crazy after that 33-point performance, and now we need to get more playing time. We need to showcase him. And then he has a good performance against the Indiana Pacers after Steve Kerr kind of chastised the young guys. But it's just not enough right now. And I don't know if anything's going to be enough. We could talk about Jimmy Butler, or Cam Johnson, or any of these other rumors that are out there for the Warriors to acquire some help. But in the end, I just don't know if this team is good enough to be a 5 seed in the West. And I had my doubts going into the season. I didn't know if they were going to be that good of a team. I saw the players they acquired in Kyle Anderson and Buddy Hield and DeAnthony Melton over the summertime, and I thought to myself, this really isn't improving the team. There's some good, guys that are going to help here or there, but I didn't think that they improved enough where they were going to be a championship contender. And you listen to Steph Curry talk to Malika Andrews, where he says he desperately wants to win. But I don't know about this year. I didn't think that they did enough this season to improve the team, and we're seeing it right now with them struggling.
Well, and what's a little bit alarming about the fact that there's a lot of similarities to last year, as I'm just kind of looking up and down the roster, is Andrew Wiggins is playing much better than he did last year. He's more available. Draymond Green is much more available and has largely played well on the defensive side of the ball. Dennis Schroeder's a new piece, obviously, but Kevon Looney is another one playing better. So, they're getting more out of their foundation and their veterans, but there's this intense gap when you look at Buddy Hield, and you saw what kind of team they were when Buddy Hield was playing well to start the season. So they almost have to play him because they don't have Klay Thompson anymore, and they need someone who can shoot the ball. But when he's not shooting the ball well, he's basically unplayable out there, and that's been a problem. Dennis Schroeder, it's a small sample size, just 4 games. Johnathon Kaminga has his moments, but is wildly inconsistent. Brandon Pajemski, I think, has gotten a little bit of an unfair share of the hate, just because I don't know what people's expectations really were for Brandon Pajemski, but he's hit a sophomore slump. Trace Jackson Davis, up until this last week, had not been producing very much. And Gary Payton II, another one who did get hurt on Christmas, but he's been largely healthy. So circumstantially, things could be going a lot worse for the Golden State Warriors. 2 seasons ago, it was the Jordan Poole punch and the bad culture in the locker room. Last year, it was Klay Thompson having his up and down with the moodiness and a lot of the veterans not playing super effectively. Yeah. This year, it feels relatively stable on paper in terms of health, availability, lack of drama, but they're just not good enough in terms of production and consistency, and that's starting to really show its rear its ugly head and become a problem here for the Warriors.
No doubts. And you and I were texting last night, with no Steph Curry out there tonight, we'll kind of see what this team really is. And we were wondering, you were kind of suggesting that maybe this kind of puts some urgency into the front office, Mike Dunleavy and Joe Lacob, to be like, all right, this team is kind of carried by one man right now, and maybe we need to make some moves in order to help him out. So I don't know. Do you think that they're going to make a move sooner than later, or do you think they're just going to let this play out and see just how bad they can be until they really need to make a move before February 6th of the trade deadline?
That is the discussion, right? That is going to be the focus for the next couple of months up until February 6th, I guess 6 weeks here on The Sports Leader, if and until they do make a move. And look, here's the thing, Derek. I, for one, appreciate the fact that they tried to get everything out of this run that they could. So, yes, I'm young, but don't think, anybody out there, that I didn't grow up seeing and understanding how the Warriors were perceived and how they were looked at in the NBA as a free agent destination or a team that was undesirable for a long time. I lived through enough of the losing years to get a clear understanding of that. And I do think, considering the run that they had, it would have really stunk if they left us hanging on to a bunch of what ifs. That said, it's also 3 years now in a row where this whole flip the switch or they're going to put it all together idea isn't working. So they either got to take a big swing and accept that it can backfire, or they need to retool in a manner that shows you're accepting the end of one of the great runs in sports. And does that mean trade Steph Curry if you take the second route? Probably, because as long as he's on this team and you see the kind of peaks he hits, like he did on Christmas Day or like he did in the Olympics, there's going to be an expectation and a desire to maximize that career. So if you're against that, then embrace the possibility of taking a big swing and the high risk that comes with that. Or if you're not with it, I think you got to come to terms with the fact that this is a play-in team in the West, if that.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of all in a year ago for them to kind of move on and kind of rebuild around Steph. But we're way past that point. Obviously, with the swings they try to make this offseason and Lauri Markkanen or Paul George or even Carl Anthony Towns was a rumor out there for a little bit of time. Yeah, I mean, I would have been fine with them trying to, get some more draft picks and trying to build this team up a little bit younger, but that's not going to happen at this point. This owner is not going to sit by and watch years go off of Steph Curry's career. He wants to win now, and I don't blame them. So, yeah, I mean, right now, the only move that's attractive enough, I think, for them to get back at championship contention would be to trade for Jimmy Butler. But I don't know really if that's good enough. And we can talk about that more next segment. But I just don't know if there's a move out there, Greg, that really can improve them to be one of the best teams in the West. I think it's just there's so much competition in the West. I just don't think a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler is going to make them better than the OKC Thunder or the Dallas Mavericks or the Denver Nuggets. I think they're very limited right now.
Yeah, they are definitely in a tough spot. Steve Kerr has been searching for answers. We got into that a little bit yesterday, and we'll go ahead and take our first break now. On the other side, we'll talk about Jimmy Butler and his preference to be traded out of Miami, and then Pat Riley's quick rebuttal against that statement. And then we'll get into a little bit of football. We didn't get much into NFL Christmas. We'll do a little bit of sounds played around 6:50 as we get into the top of the hour, and then we'll transition to the 49ers, get ready for John Lynch, do a little Mark Spears at 8:30, and we will be out of here. It is Murph and Marcus with Greg Silver and Derek Papa. That's right. The over-under was set at 2.5. I'm not calling you Greg, Papa, just
No, there's a lot of time left in the show, Greg. There's a lot of time left in the show.
Hey, 1 for 1 so far, and I wouldn't have it any other way. 808 KNBR, the number if you'd like to join the conversation at any point. Also, shout out to the YouTube chat, as always. And we'll be back on the other side with a little Jimmy Butler talk. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
San Francisco, shout out to you for supporting KNBR, San Francisco's sports leader.
Now, from the O'Donnell Financial Group Sports Desk. Learn more at odfigroup.com. O'Donnell Financial Group, because planning is a process, not a product.
It's a full day on the KNBR airwaves. We'll have John Lynch joined us around 7:45, Mark Spears at 8:30, and then triple bowl games after the show, starting with the Armed Forces Bowl between Oklahoma and Navy, then the Birmingham Bowl between Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt, and then rounding things out with the Liberty Bowl between Texas Tech and Arkansas. Keep it tuned right here on 104.5 FM, 680 AM, or however you stream the sports leader.
And now, time for the Protect Your Assets with David Hollander Business and Technology Report. This has been the Protect Your Assets with David Hollander Business and Technology Report. Concerned inflation will ruin your dream retirement? Learn more. Listen to David's show every Saturday morning on KNBR or call 1-866-PROTECT. Dub Nation, Murph and Marcus keep rolling on the sports leader and streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
What's happening? Thanks for joining us on a Friday morning. It's Murph and Marcus with Greg Silver and Derek Papa as we round into the weekend here on a nice little holiday week. Hope everyone had a good time with their family and their loved ones, and it's time to get back into some sports. 2024, the way it's rounding out, though, not the prettiest for the Bay Area sports teams, but that doesn't mean that we won't stop talking about it. In fact, we're going to do the opposite and talk about everything that's on the table, including one James Butler. That's right. Jimmy Butler was reported by Shams Charania on ESPN on Christmas morning that he preferred to be traded before the February 6th trade deadline. He had his top two win now destinations listed as the Phoenix Suns and Golden State Warriors. And then Pat Riley came out yesterday and just straight up refuted any notion and said, we usually don't comment on rumors, but all this speculation has become a distraction to the team, and this is not fair to the players and coaches. Therefore, we will make it clear we are not trading Jimmy Butler. Derek, little drama, huh?
Greg, this is classic Pat Riley. This is him being like, I don't want any bull crap in my organization. I don't want Jimmy Butler taking the team away from me. I'm not buying him saying we're not trading Jimmy Butler. This is him telling the rest of the NBA, I haven't got a good enough deal yet. I haven't been enticed by anything that maybe the Warriors, Suns, Mavericks, or Rockets have offered. And I would love to know, we'll ask Mark Spears this later on the show, I would love to know what the relationship is like between Jimmy Butler and Pat Riley right now. Because you remember this, Greg, being a hoops head. The way the season ended a year ago for the Miami Heat, they did not have Jimmy Butler in that playoff series against the Boston Celtics. And then Jimmy Butler went on whatever social media platform and said, I would have won. I mean, the Heat would have won had I been healthy for this series. And then like a week later, when they got swept or whatever it was in that series, Pat Riley comes out and says, Jimmy Butler needs to shut the hell up. So
Yep.
Pat Riley is old school. I like the way he's one of the last hard asses in the NBA. I like the way he does things. I just, we'll go through these trade scenarios. Bobby Marks has some trade scenarios that he put out there that the Warriors could do. But I don't know, man. I'm not buying what Jimmy or what Pat Riley's putting out there as far as the Heat's interest in trading him. I think it's kind of conflicting a little bit. I think Jimmy Butler, he wouldn't go and release this to Shams, or his agent wouldn't release this to Shams if he wanted to stay in Miami. And Bobby Marks himself, I saw last week, had a conflicting report where he said, I would be surprised if Jimmy Butler was traded, because unless the Miami Heat are just blown away by a deal, or that he just becomes so much of a distraction that they just need to get rid of him, he doesn't see a deal going down. So at this point, I think they want to trade Jimmy Butler. They just haven't been enticed by anything that's been on the table.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I agree with you that I'm not buying too much into what Pat Riley said. I think if anything, it's like, let's eliminate some distractions and probably being annoyed, if anything, with what has been going on with Jimmy Butler and the noise that's maybe been created. I mean, it's funny how everybody's memory is so quick in the world of sports. And I'm not talking about professionals like Pat Riley, but I'm talking about people like us or fans or anywhere where there's a little bit of discourse or discussion to be had. And you take it to 2 years ago, and Jimmy Butler takes a team that looked gross in their first play-in game. They were 5 minutes away from being eliminated by the Chicago Bulls. They hold on, get the 8th seed, and then tear through the playoffs and go to the finals. And Jimmy Butler's whole persona and talking trash and not caring about anything and saying, if I got into the Hall of Fame, I wouldn't even go to the speech and all that. Like, that becomes cool because it was working. And then they run out of gas because the Celtics series goes, instead of 4 or 5 games, it goes to 7. And then Jokic and the Nuggets, I mean, far and away the best team. No one really challenged them in that postseason. Take it a year later, Jimmy Butler's doing the same thing. He's got the same persona, but he's not on the court. And so he's talking, and the Heat, even the series at 1 apiece against the favorite Boston Celtics in the first round, and everyone's thinking, are we seriously doing this again? Like, are they going to do this without Jimmy Butler? And then the Celtics quickly strapped up, got it together. It went 5 games, didn't end up becoming a thing. And then all of a sudden, Pat Riley's like, Jimmy Butler needs to stop because he's not out there and playing. Here's my thing with Jimmy Butler. Aside from where you stand, if you're just like, I don't care if the Warriors stink. I watched them stink for a long time before Steph. Get Jimmy Butler and just try to make a run at a title. That's one opinion. Then there's the second side, which is Jimmy Butler is a little bit older. He's injury prone, not always available. How would he do on a team that might not be competitive beyond 1 year or 2 years if we're going to stretch it? You know, like, we don't know how that would go. And then also, does he want a max deal? Because that's a big if to me. If he wants a max contract, that puts the Warriors in a tough spot. I think that's part of the discussion with why he wants to be traded away from the Heat. They don't want to trade him, but they don't want to pay him long-term with his availability. And I think it wouldn't be wise for the Warriors to pay him a max deal when they don't know how much longer they're going to be competitive. And if you do get Jimmy Butler, you're kind of mortgaging a lot of your future already. It sort of just puts you in this no man land, and it is a big swing, but it sort of has to work or you're set back for the next decade.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Greg. I don't know if it's worth it, and I don't think there's any scenario where you would sign back Jimmy Butler to this team on a max deal. I think this is just a half a season experiment. Jimmy Butler joins the team. He helps the defense. But I don't think it's going to help them enough where they become one of these premier teams in the West. I just think that me and Copes went through it last week. You go through the rosters. I'll ask you, if Jimmy Butler is traded to the Warriors, are they better than the OKC Thunder right now?
No.
Okay. Are they better than the Dallas Mavericks right now?
Maybe because Luka Doncic is out for a week or a month.
Okay, that's a fair point. Denver, I mean, you just go through the teams, and I just don't see it. I don't know if Jimmy Butler is going to fit well with this team too. Jimmy Butler has been on the man on this Miami Heat team since he came over. He had issues with the Minnesota Timberwolves. He had issues with the Philadelphia 76ers because he was not the guy on those teams. And at this point in his career, maybe he'd be willing to take a back seat to Steph Curry. But I just don't know how he was going to gel on this team. I don't know if him and Draymond would get along. I think that they would make a great defensive duo. But I just need to see it. I don't know if Jimmy, like we talk about how, Dennis Schroeder needs to play the style that the Warriors have played, Johnathon Kaminga, Brandon Pajemski. Jimmy Butler, he's he's used to playing ISO in this Miami Heat offense. So I don't know if he's going to, thrive in the scheme that Steve Kerr wants to run. So, yeah, I want to throw some trade scenarios at you, though, Greg, that I saw Bobby Marks put in his article. He suggests if they were going to do the Jimmy Butler trade, that they should include Kyle Anderson, GP2, Andrew Wiggins, not include Johnathon Kaminga, throw in a 2025 first-round pick and a 2028 first-round pick, and it has to be a 3-team trade where Kevon Looney and a 2026 second-round pick go to the Pistons. That seems convoluted, but how would you feel about that one?
You said 2026 second-round pick?
Yes.
Okay, so this trade aside, this is kind of where I stand on the Jimmy Butler. I actually don't have an issue with how he would possibly fit with this roster because I think anyone who goes and plays with Steph Curry. I get it. It's not something everyone can just seamlessly do, but I think Jimmy Butler, with how long he's been in the league, how much he's played against him, would have an understanding of the fact that they run things a certain way. Steph is the guy, it's his team, and Jimmy Butler can go be a pain in the butt on defense. I think he and Draymond would gel really well together, being two defensive-minded people. I don't think Jimmy Butler would require a high volume of shots. My issue is the availability. It's not even the depth, Derek. It's not even sacrificing all these pieces that's an issue, because it's like, yes, they have depth. And again, this is the discussion for 3 years now. They have depth in terms of capable players, but they have no depth when it comes to beyond your best two players. And so having a third guy in Jimmy Butler doesn't concern me as far as, well, you're sacrificing some pieces of depth. Yeah, but look at the roster you have now. It just creates a who's who for the closing lineup every night, and that's not great for the players. It's proving to not be so easy for Steve Kerr, too, and it's understandable so. I think that the availability and the age is where I'm a little bit concerned. And when you look at a team like the OKC Thunder, then I'm like, yeah, that's not so great. I don't see it as much of a problem when you look at somebody like I guess Dallas is still relatively young, but like OKC's young, athletic, fast, and they're really good. They're kind of the worst of everything. So I guess in your trade scenario, I'm not against it, especially if you don't have to give up Wiggins and Kaminga, but again, I think the issue with holding on to Kaminga in this particular scenario is Jimmy Butler's your new small forward, and then you still have the whole Kaminga has to play the four offensively. What do you do with Draymond? What do you do with Trace Jackson Davis? I guess it would be less backlogged with no Kevon Looney and no Kyle Anderson, but again, I just don't know, with Kaminga already struggling to fit in the system at times, and the system not having really adapted because Steph sort of is the system, I don't know if that issue gets solved. So I guess that's a very broad and kind of windy road answer to get to where I'm going, but that's kind of my initial thoughts on the trade you just threw out there.
Well, I mean, I have a better one. That was the one Bobby Marks threw out there, but I would prefer, I mean, there's no scenario where you don't trade Johnathon Kaminga. It would make no sense to have Johnathon Kaminga and Jimmy Butler on the same roster together at this point. I like the idea of sending Kyle Anderson, GP2, Andrew Wiggins, and Kaminga for Jimmy Butler and Nikola Jovic, the young guy, the kind of like the Jokic of the Miami Heat right now. But if you had to do that deal, at this point, if Joe Lacob and the Warriors just have to make a move in order to get where they want to go as to be a championship contender, then I say go for it. But you have to deal with the ramifications of this not panning out. Jimmy Butler, like you said, Greg, is 35 years old. You would have I don't know who else is 30 years old on this team, but very older players on this roster in your starting five. And I just don't know if they can compete with younger teams in this league. OKC would run circles around them in the playoffs. So I just don't think, yeah, sure, it's worth it with what you're dealing with right now in this season, but I don't think it would pan out.
Yeah. Then again, if the Warriors keep losing in the fashion that they have, then I'm going to get pushed closer to the brink of, okay, take a big swing. It might backfire. Maybe you're in no man's land, and maybe that this team is not going to be doing much for the next few years anyway. But as long as you're committed to having Steph Curry on your roster, you have to be open and willing to take big swings. And I don't want to say be reckless, but I do think there is a point where you look at the mirror. Steph Curry is going to be 37 March 14th and say, okay, if I'm committed to Steph Curry, then I need to be willing and committed to taking some big risks that go with that.
Well, let me ask you this, Greg. You saw the interview with Malika Andrews that Steph Curry did. At what point do you think Steph would get? I think Mark Spears brings this up all the time, and I'm not so sure about this. He signed an extension this summer that makes him tied to the Warriors for the next 3 years. And Steph Curry in the interview with Malika Andrews says, I'm desperately trying to win, whatever that means. Do you ever think it would get to the point where Steph would actually go to the Warriors, Joe Lacob, and say, I want out of here? I think at this point he gets everything he wants in this team as far as control. And it would take a lot for him to be like, I want to go someplace else just to win. I know he wants to win, but I don't think he would have the same luxury that he has on the Warriors right now. It's the same deal with LeBron James on the Lakers. Sure, he can go somewhere else to get his last ring, but he has so much control on this team. I just think that it would take a lot for Steph Curry one day to be like, okay, I want to get out of here. It would, at that point, Joe Lacob and Mike Dunleavy would move the earth in order to keep Steph Curry here and get him what he wants. I find it hard to believe that one day Steph would just be so fed up that he wants to have a trade request to get away from this team.
Well, we asked this to Marcus Thompson on Christmas Eve. Silver and Silver asked this to Marcus Thompson. We talked about it. I said, is there a point? Because he's really clued into Steph Curry. He wrote a book on him. And I was like, would he just go to Mike Dunleavy and say, look, and just kind of lay it out there? And Marcus's answer was essentially, Steph has never been that guy. And if there's a panic play to be made, I think it would be retirement. So I found that very fascinating.
Yeah, you know what? I could see that. I mean, I just don't think at this point in his career, like, yeah, okay, trade me to go play with KD in Phoenix or trade me to go play with LeBron in LA. I just don't see that. I think that he's a loyal dude. I think he wants to be like Kobe Bryant, where he finished his career with one team. I know that that's a threat out there that's, maybe they could trade Steph. There is no chance in hell that Joe Lacob would ever trade Steph Curry. And I think it's very minimal that Steph Curry would ever demand a trade from the Warriors. I think they're going to do everything in their power to make them a competitive team, but I can't see you at the point where it gets so contentious between both Steph and Joe Lacob where he wants out of the organization. I cannot see that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And we'll kind of keep the conversation moving onto the basketball throughout the 4 hours. We'll be sprinkling it in. We're going to talk to Mark Spears at 8:30. So we got a lot of great questions to ask him as we work through a lot of scenarios here. On the other side, we'll get into NFL Christmas a little bit. We'll play some sounds at 6:50, which is going to be a little football, a little basketball, a little bit of everything. Have a good laugh if you're still with us here in the 6 a.m. hour on a Friday. It is Derek Papa, 2 for 2, and Greg Silver, only here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
faithful Murph and Marcus keep your morning moving. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
Jackson fakes the handoff, runs to his right. He's going to lane 40, 35, 30, down the near sideline. Jackson on his way to the end zone. Touchdown, Ravens. Lamar Jackson goes 48 yards, and the Ravens add to their lead. 13:22 to go, third quarter. It's now Baltimore 23, Houston 2, and Lamar Jackson, a wide open running lane, took full advantage.
NFL Christmas gave us some fun and some good highlights. The games themselves, not all that close, but Lamar Jackson there with a 48-yard run en route to a 31-2 victory over the reeling Houston Texans with our guy D'Amico Ryans leading the charge there. And Derek, is NFL and Christmas, it's your thing right there. Not the best games, but still some good highlights, two of the best teams. And if I have any takeaway, it's that the Chiefs are doing the thing again where they're starting to look like they're just getting right around Christmas. And then the Ravens look like one of the teams, one of the probably two teams with Buffalo that I think have a legitimate chance to threaten them.
Yeah, I was very surprised with Baltimore turning around their defense this season. I mean, the last 2 weeks, they look great against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and just to hold the Houston Texans to 2 points. Earlier in the season, their pass defense was atrocious, but now they definitely turned things on. Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're pissing me off, Greg, because with just, they've won back-to-back Super Bowls, and now they go 15-1, and they're going to rest all their starters the last week, and the Denver Broncos will make the playoffs. And it's just crazy to me that they're able to do this. Like, usually when you see teams win back-to-back Super Bowls, there's a little lull there. Like, there's a little down year. Like, I remember the last back-to-back Super Bowl champion were the New England Patriots, and they went 10-6 that following year, and I think they lost to the Denver Broncos that year. But even like the San Francisco 49ers, when they went back-to-back in 88 and 89, they had a 14-2 season, I believe, in 1990. But then, they're probably the only team that came that close to having a three-peat. And then we all know the Roger Craig fumble and all that. This kind of feels like that with the Kansas City Chiefs. Not saying that they're going to fumble it away in the title game and not win, but like, God, the dominance this team has. And I don't think they've improved at all. I mean, okay, I'll take that back. They've really looked good defensively. But offensively, it's like, where did this team go? Like, I remember them being the high-flying offense in 2018 and 2019. And ever since then, they've kind of been more of a defensive-oriented team where, okay, Patrick Mahomes throws, 2 interceptions in a game. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to freak out. They'll figure out how to win this game. But now they got more weapons. I mean, Xavier Worthy, this dude that I've been watching from Texas, I mean, the combination of him and now Marquise Brown in their starting lineup and as wide receiver, that's going to be dangerous. They also have DeAndre Hopkins that they traded for earlier at the trade deadline. No, they look unstoppable right now. And I'm hoping that the Buffalo Bills can beat them in the postseason. Hell, I'll even take the Baltimore Ravens to beat them. But I'm not so sure about that right now. As far as the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, what the hell happened to this defense? Like, I thought they were the best defense.
They peaked in high school.
What's that?
Pittsburgh Steelers peaked in high school.
I guess
NFL
so.
Terms.
Yes, because they're having a downslope right now. 3 straight losses to good teams, to superior teams, I would say. There was a debate if they were better than the Baltimore Ravens at one point, but the Philadelphia Eagles are better than them. The Kansas City Chiefs are better than them. Just Russell Wilson throwing just ridiculous interceptions right now. Like, I don't know if you saw where Jalen Warren scored a touchdown. It was called for holding. And then Russell Wilson throws a pick in the end zone right after that, where whoever he was throwing to was not open. So, yeah, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, right now the matchup would be, I believe, the wild card weekend would be the Denver Broncos playing the Buffalo Bills, the LA Chargers playing the Baltimore Ravens, and the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Houston Texans. And that's fitting because while both of these games were stinkers and the losing teams looked terrible, we're going to see these teams in the playoffs. And the Houston Texans, they lost, both of their wide receivers and Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. He may never play again with how many injuries he has in that one knee. So,
that stunk.
It did. So, yeah, I think that Baltimore's trending in the right direction. I think that obviously the Kansas City Chiefs are. I think it's right now a 3-team race. I think right now you'd have to say that the Kansas City Chiefs are the betting favorites to repeat once again. I would love to see the Buffalo Bills upset them if they have to go to Arrowhead and beat them. And, yeah, I mean, I think the Baltimore Ravens are dangerous right now with their ability to throw the football and to run. Derrick Henry getting 147 yards on the ground. And Lamar Jackson getting close to 100 yards becomes the all-time rushing quarterback in NFL history. So, yeah, I came away thinking that the cream of the crop of the AFC is looking good, and the wild card team and the Pittsburgh Steelers and the AFC South Division champions, the Houston Texans, don't look so hot.
It's insane that the Chiefs are one of 4 teams to have not cracked 31 points or more. They've scored 30. They've not scored over 30 points, along with the Giants, Raiders, and Patriots. The Chiefs are 15-1. The Patriots are 3-12. Your Raiders are 3-12.
Whoa, easy.
And
there,
the Giants,
easy there.
Your Las Vegas Raiders.
No. Wait, stop. I'm going to string you through the stream here.
Okay, fine.
I was
Derek's
an Oakland Raiders fan. I'm not going to have you, Adam Copeland, bully me on the show today.
Okay, fine. That's fair. I guess I have not earned the right to Adam Copeland bully you just yet. And then the New York Giants
were he for that matter.
Yeah, fair enough. And the Giants are 2-13. So that's all to say that all those teams stink, and the Chiefs are sitting pretty at 15-1. Travis Kelce all of a sudden looks young again and good. They're just doing the thing. It's annoying. I will say I have some faith in the Baltimore Ravens for 2 reasons. 1, you mentioned it. They turned around their defense. And 2, last year in the AFC Championship, they decided to just not run the ball for whatever reason. If you do that again and you have Derrick Henry on your roster, you deserve to never win a playoff game.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to run the ball more with Derrick Henry in the playoffs, and you have to, because that's when the good teams are the running teams. So, yeah, I think that I don't know what happened in that AFC Championship game a year ago. I thought that Lamar Jackson had one of his worst performances throwing, you remember that one interception he threw in the back of the end zone where it was just 3 Chiefs defenders right there? So, yeah, I think I think the Baltimore Ravens will be smarter in the playoffs when it comes to, running the football and not making sure that, they just get away from the run enough. But, yeah, I'm curious, though, Greg. What did you think of Beyonce's performance at halftime with the Baltimore Ravens and Houston Texans?
I'll be honest, that was very much background noise in the Silver household on Christmas. I was trying to strike the balance of, guys, I need to keep up with sports. It's for my job, and also not have my family get mad at me and be present. So, that was one of those sacrifices I made. I'm not going to dive deep into the Beyonce performance.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. It was background noise for me too. When I noticed it, I was like, man, this is extravagant for a regular season game. And I understand that Netflix was throwing all the money to her. I think she got paid $60 million or something like that to do whatever she wanted in that halftime show. But I mean, good Lord. It was well done. I'm not really a big Beyonce guy, and I know when I say that, there's going to be people picketing outside the KNBR studio. But yeah, you prefer
her husband instead?
Easy there, Greg. It's easy there. Maybe back in the day, but yeah, I just thought it was a little much for a regular season halftime show. But yeah, that has become quite the pain in the ass now as we become on-air talent. That, back in the day when we were producers, we could just be yeah, I have to pay attention to this. And, people oh, no, you don't, whatever. Now when you're with a family, you have a legitimate gripe to be hey, guys, shut up. I have to work.
Yeah, well, you should know that very well just from the work of your own father being come on, guys, I got to watch the game.
Shut up, I have to work was common in our household.
It's okay. I can relate to that somewhat too. Before we take a break, just want to address a couple in the YouTube chat. EB here talking about Derek Papa. Homeboy dresses up as a Raider and doesn't want to be associated with the Raiders.
What, because I got a silver and black sweater on?
Once you go silver and black, you can never go back. And then Tacky,
that is true. That is true.
Tacky just says take Derek to HR, Greg. Don't worry. We've already taken care of that. Once the holidays and
if we had an HR department to speak of in the first place.
Okay, hey, stop giving away my secrets.
It's not your secrets. It's the secrets of this station.
Yeah, that's right. Well, not so secret on the other side, but we will play some sound. Got a lot to get into, including a guy who might be feeling a little nicey in John Gruden.
Ooh.
That's next on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
From the Chilton Auto Body Traffic Desk. It's time for KNBR's Opening Bell Report. Sponsored by Protect Your Assets with David Hollander. Concerned inflation will ruin your dream retirement? Learn more. Listen to David's show every Saturday morning or call 1-866-PROTECT. Murph and Marcus continue live from the KNBR Casino Matrix Progressive Jackpot Studios. Casino Matrix. Progressive jackpots are here. Where are you? Just drop in. Please play responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER.
I love the NFL, but Christmas is our day.
Oh,
Stop it.
spicy.
Stop
Spicy LeBron James. Well, that's going to kick off our sounds / cooler of content segment here on the Murph and Marcus Morning Show. Only I'm Greg Silver. He's Derek Papa. Thanks for joining us. We got John Lynch coming up at 7:45. We got Mark Spears joining us at 8:30. And in the meantime, let's play some of our favorite sounds because the holidays offer a lot of content. It is a sneaky time for a lot of sports going on, and we're going to have some fun with it. Derek, I know you're an NFL guy.
Yeah.
We got to talk about this LeBron James thing. I take it you're not a big fan.
Well, here's my thing. I understand that the NBA has been on Christmas for a long time. And yeah, I enjoy it too. I've been, used to watching the Warriors play on Christmas Day. Usually it's Steph versus LeBron. And that was the highlight of the Christmas sports schedule. I will admit that the NFL games were bad. I mean, we just talked about it. The Kansas City Chiefs beat up on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Baltimore Ravens beat up on the Houston Texans. Yes, I get it that those games were not good. And the creme de la creme of the day was Steph Curry going up against LeBron James. But that was really it for the NBA for me. And I saw Bill Simmons talk about this yesterday on his podcast, how that's kind of good and bad for the NBA, that you have two of their biggest stars are the aging stars. Steph Curry and LeBron James, still great players, but we as Americans don't get up for the other, stars of the NBA. Like Giannis didn't play on Christmas Day. Victor Wembanyama was earlier on in the day against the New York Knicks.
And he was
the NBA had,
awesome.
Was he? That's the thing.
It was like 42 points, 18 rebounds, and a close loss, by the way. Yeah, it was incredible.
I saw that it was a close loss, but yeah, I mean, at this early on, I'll admit, I watch the Warriors right now, but I'm not a hoops head to the point where I'm watching all the other teams in the NBA right now. And I understand that the NBA is like, come on, NFL, this is our territory. Christmas is our day. But the NFL doesn't care about anyone or anything. They will infiltrate any other sport they can. So I understand, LeBron James is the face of the NBA, and he's like, get off of our turf. Yeah, okay, Christmas is your day, but stop it. All right. Next year, this is going to be on a Thursday, and there will be 3 games for the NFL. I guarantee you, we're going to have a morning game at 10 a.m. We're going to have an afternoon game at 1 o'clock our time, and then we're going to have a 5:15 kickoff, and that will dominate the ratings as it did the other day, because collectively 65 million people watched Netflix over the NBA. So I understand the NBA is upset that the NFL is taking over, but the NFL doesn't care about anyone. They will kill your sport. They're doing it. Just accept it.
Yeah, you're not wrong about the NFL not caring about anyone, and they'll infiltrate anything, and the numbers don't lie. 24.2 million.
By putting these games on Christmas. They don't care about you, LeBron.
I mean, it was about 5 times. Thank you, Raph. It was about 5 times the viewership between the NFL and the NBA. Yes. And in many ways, I get where you're coming from, Derek. Now, the one thing I will say, and this has nothing to do with the ratings or the amount of people that watch it. If you're LeBron James, I understand making the big statement. I understand doing it after a thrilling win like that in prime time, which was one of the great games against your longtime rival and friend, and doing it at this age. I will say that even though the NFL is always going to win because it is just a walking giant that will stomp anything, the NBA for a long time has done a really good job of marketing the Christmas thing. I want less jerseys, fewer jerseys out there on a regular basis, but I would like to see the Christmas jerseys come back. Those were so fun. I also think the NBA does a great job of marketing its stars, and Steph versus LeBron. Yeah, maybe they're clinging onto it as they probably should. We got Wemby. The Knicks are a good team. They usually put riveting matchups, start on the East Coast, always got the Celtics in there somewhere in the early slate, usually the Warriors or Nuggets or something there on the later slate. I think they've done a fantastic job with it and marketing the stars. So is Christmas the NBA's day in the sense of it will dominate the viewership and the discussion? No. But do I think that it is a bigger part of the league? Yeah, I do. And I think that they could have done, like, what I want to see the NFL do, and not that they have to do this, because they don't, Derek, but what I would like to see them do is, okay, put Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes. Put Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. What are your sure thing bets that you know will hit on Christmas? And Thanksgiving's different because you always got to have the Lions, who weren't good until a couple of years ago. You always got to have the Cowboys, and then the night game is TBD. I would like to see the NFL treat their matchups priority for Christmas like the NBA does for them.
I think they will. I mean, I think you're going to see Patrick Mahomes on Christmas Day for the foreseeable future. We saw it last year with the Raiders playing the Chiefs, and we saw it. I mean, he wasn't on Thanksgiving Day, but he was on Black Friday with the Raiders playing the Chiefs again. And I wouldn't put the Raiders on Christmas Day or any national TV for that matter right now. But no, I'm with you on that one. I mean, I would say the matchups look good going into the game. Like when we got the schedule, it was a premier franchise in the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on Patrick Mahomes. And then you had C.J. Stroud versus Lamar Jackson. So I think they had good matchups on paper, just the games didn't turn out that way. And yeah, I think that they'll try to give us the best quarterbacks out there to put the matchups, but also really they don't need to, because at the end of the day, they could put, like, they wouldn't do this, but let's say they put Jacksonville versus Houston, Trevor Lawrence versus CJ Stroud. That's not sexy to, a good majority of America. But at the same time, you're going to watch it. I bet you will, because it's football. So people can, complain all the time about, I can't stand that the Denver Broncos, a couple years ago when it's Russell Wilson, I can't stand that the Denver Broncos are on national TV, or Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets are on national TV. Okay, they can't flex everything. So you'll watch. It's football. We only get it for a certain amount of time of the year. So I tell everybody, shut the hell up and just enjoy your football. And you can watch basketball on the side too.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Thursday Night Football proved anything to us, it's that we will watch football. Like Titans Jags play, I know they play twice a year, but they really play 6 times a year. You know what I mean? Like that is the Thursday Night Football game.
Stealing jokes from Tim Webb, I see. I like your style, Greg.
It's true. And I also feel like the Saints and Falcons play each other 6 times a year as well.
They do.
Yeah. So no, I mean, you're right. Shout out to Tim, and I do need to give Tim some love because it is a 6 to 9 show this morning. And also, by the way, you're listening to KNBR and KNBR FM, San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. Greg Silver, Derek Papa with you. A legal ID. I'm on the clock, man. We're a clock management show. All right.
I like it.
You see who my co-host is on full time?
Yes, I do. Yes, I understand that you have to do most of the heavy work there.
Well, no, he understands the clock management too. Every time I make a joke, I just go, "Hey, we're like Kyle Shanahan. We manage the clock," and then he's like totally locked in, and we're good to go. Thursday Night Football is a good segue into our next piece of sound, because we're going to get into some sound, and John Gruden, who is not feeling so nicey about Thursday Night Football, has some opinions. It has to do with not memorizing the playbook in time, not getting to see the defensive packages and the red zone, and He gives a nice rant, courtesy of Pardon My Take. Here is John Gruden on Thursday Night Football.
But I do believe when you're playing Thursday football, there's very little preparation. There's very little time to recover, and it's going to take its toll on the performance.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't show up. This is not Major League Baseball where we can play a doubleheader and go out and play here. It's not the NBA, no disrespect. But this is a lot of physical contact, man.
Right.
And a lot of these guys they're hurting.
Yeah.
They are really sucking it up right now to play.
Especially this point in the season, week 16. Like I agree with you. The teams playing on Christmas and Saturday this week, they're playing 3 games in 11 days at the end of the season. That's crazy.
Well, it is crazy.
And you got to protect. I mean, I don't want to watch the playoffs if like some of these guys, a Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson isn't playing.
Exactly. Hell, I look at Major League Baseball. They won't even let the pitcher pitch 9 innings.
Right.
They're worried about his arm getting sore. But you're right. How would you like to be a 12-1 team like the Chiefs and lose a couple players for the first round of the playoffs because they get hurt in one of these games that they're playing in an 11-day period? But does this microphone work? I make sure I can say this clearly. I hate Thursday football, especially when you got to be the road team.
Yeah.
And when they make you fly into a different time zone on a Thursday, it's ridiculous to me. I think you got to be really honest and careful with how you look at the performances on Thursday night.
John Gruden.
I agree.
Not liking the Thursday Night Football. Kerry Crowley, a big anti-Thursday Night Football guy. But I got to ask you this, Derek, because we can't be hypocrites. We discussed, now that we're doing the on-air stuff, got to watch some sports sometimes. But sometimes having a Thursday night game to break up the week, even though last night's game, which, I guess we'll talk about a little bit, didn't do much for us. From the observer and from the media, if that's what we're going to call ourselves, it is nice to have. I don't think it's a good product. I can understand why NFL teams hate it, but I'm also going to reluctantly admit that there's some benefits for what we do here.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have a football game in the middle of the week. Like, I'll say last week, the Chargers-Broncos game was very entertaining, but last night was awful. I mean, no one wants to watch a 6-3 game. Like, they were making jokes on the broadcast, Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, about this was like a baseball game. It was awful. And, God, I mean, sorry, Raph, but Caleb Williams, like, God, dude, just stop taking sacks. Just throw the damn football. Good Lord. I'm with John Gruden. I am with him. Even though I pine over the NFL, the Thursday Night Football product is bad. It is, for the most part. It's not fair to the players. It's a short week. Most of the time, you're not getting good games, and it's not fair. Like I said, it's not fair to the players. They don't have time to recoup and get their bodies right. When they try to do this thing, I think it was like 10 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for Thanksgiving and having that. It's tradition. But with Christmas, I didn't love how they had to move up the games to Saturday and then quick turn around to Wednesday. They weren't great games. You had the best teams kick the ass of an inferior team. And they only did that because, they wanted to put the games on Wednesday. I don't think that the NFL should make this a habit every year of putting games on Christmas, but they probably will. It just, like next year, Thursday makes sense. Friday makes sense. They probably won't do it on Saturday. Well, actually, they probably will do it on Saturday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that's a lot too, but they'll probably do it. Yeah, I just think that the NFL is a juggernaut. They're going to try to put as many games out as possible. And, sometimes it's going to be a crappy product, but for the football watching crazed Americans we're going to watch it.
Yeah, we're going to watch it. It goes back to the whole NFL discussion. And again, not saying that the NBA owns Christmas in the sense of what will actually dominate, but I do think from a marketing standpoint, they've done a good job. If there's an NFL game on, even if it's not Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, TJ Watt, I'll throw Russell Wilson in there too, marquee QB. People are going to watch it. It's just a giant that has sort of always dominated. They own an entire day of the week. They will also own whatever day of the week that they decide to play on, as we learned during the COVID-19 pandemic. We had Tuesday Night Football, and people still watched it. And so that's just kind of the way it is. Let's play another sound, and we're going to split up the sound segment into two, so we'll continue this on the other side. But one more here before we go and take a break. Let's keep it right here on football. Let's hear from old 49ers coach, current Los Angeles Chargers coach, Jim Harbaugh. He was asked if he was concerned about the cold weather. He gave the most Jim Harbaugh answer possible, and I'll just leave it at that.
We had a little rainfall last week, one day of practice. That was great to have that. But most all of us have played in those kind of games, or grew up in that kind of weather, And bottom line is, these guys are young, they're healthy, and their heart pumps warm blood, pumps it from the arteries to the veins to the tributaries to the capillaries, throughout their whole body. You just play ball. Been my experience. Now, I might have got that in the wrong order there. It's well documented. I'm not a doctor. We need to check the cardiologist. That's right. But I know it's warm blood. The young, healthy, athletic guys are able to generate.
Okay, so in addition to Jim Harbaugh just being Jim Harbaugh there, I find that clip extra amusing because he literally had to miss part of a game this year because of something that was going on with his heart. Like, he is just a guy that lives and breathes football. And he's like, yeah, I know I'm not a doctor, but, my heart's good and we're just pumping the warm blood, so our boys will be ready to go.
He is just a unique personality, man. And yeah, he doesn't give a damn about how cold it's going to be out there. I remember in a playoff game in Lambeau, he was out there with the khakis on. He's unique. I love Jim Harbaugh for all of his quirks. And did you see a couple weeks ago, he had Judge Judy as one of his team captains for a Chargers game? Judge Judy. He loves himself some Judge Judy. He went to a taping with his father, Jack. He's just a unique individual. I saw him chopping it up with Larry David before a Thursday night game. And I was like, God, I would love to hear their conversation. Where Larry's like, Jim, what's with the khakis? Every game? Yeah. I love khakis. I have to wear them. So yeah, Jim, that's the most Jim Harbaugh answer of all time. Yeah. They're young boys with warm blood. They'll be fine.
From the arteries to the veins to the tributaries to the capillaries.
Yeah, he's just saying things at that point.
Yeah, and I think Jim Harbaugh, when you have that kind of personality,
capillaries are your eyes, right?
No, I don't. See, you're putting me on the spot, and science was not my go-to thing. That's why I turn to the better half of my relationship for smart people things. I'm just here blabbing about sports at 7 a.m. on a Friday, which I'd probably be doing if I wasn't on the air. But just don't tell that to Mike Holler or any of the bosses, because I kind of do need to get these reps. Every rep counts. So we're going to leave it at that.
Same here.
More sounds on the other side. Let's hear from a couple of basketball-related sounds, and then one of the best Christmas song remixes we've heard, even if it might hurt the third member of our crew today a little bit extra. It's Derek Papa, 3 for 3, and Greg Silver on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Livermore, shout out to you for supporting KNBR, Livermore's sports leader.
From the Chilton Auto Body Traffic Desk. And now, time for the Protect Your Assets with David Hollander Business and Technology Report. This has been the Protect Your Assets with David Hollander Business and Technology Report. Concerned inflation will ruin your dream retirement? Learn more. Listen to David's show every Saturday morning on KNBR or call 1-866-PROTECT.
All right, everyone, chill.
This is the cooler
You're not sending me to the cooler.
of content.
Sponsored by Mancini Sleep World. Sleep better, live better. Visit sleepworld.com. And by Marin Health. Marin Health Medical Center and Marin Health Medical Network world-class care. Closer than you think.
On the Sports Leader.
So we're making this thing official now with the cooler of content, and we'll get our third Tim Webb mention of the day. Mancini is our sponsor for that one. So yeah, good morning, Derek, and we're going to continue with some sounds.
Greg.
Talked about Thursday Night Football. We talked about Jim Harbaugh and the heart-pumping warm blood. Let's keep it going in the Christmas spirit because, look, the holiday season isn't quite done yet, and Portland Trailblazers television color commentator Lamar Hurd, so their Kalena Azubuike, goes on this whole rant in the middle of a broadcast about why the Grinch is one of the 5 most misunderstood human beings. It truly is just great sports holiday content that can slip through the cracks, and wanted to shine a light on Lamar Hurd here.
The Grinch, one of the 5 most misunderstood beings in civilization, in history. I don't even know who the other 4 are. I just don't know 4 more than the Grinch.
But he's one of them.
Well, DA there, get in the bucket, a.k.a. the Grinch. He's minding his business, Kev, as a kid. They make fun of him because he's hairy. He then shaves. Then they mock him in the classroom because he's got cuts on his face. So he just goes back, and now he doesn't like Christmas.
Now he's got an attitude.
The Who's are making Christmas all about the presents.
Yeah.
They come up and mess with him. Cindy Lou's people come up to mess with the Grinch. He's minding his business. Ball out of bounds. Ref's going to talk it over. And then, so he comes back like, okay, I'm going to get my get back. So now he's coming for their presents as the Blazers get the ball back here.
Okay, so I know that it is Portland Trailblazers versus Utah Jazz. Not exactly the most riveting NBA matchup in today's league, but it is pretty funny to just whole game's going on and he's just, I'm going to get my point across, tell the story, and then occasionally be like, DA with the bucket, the guy that was dressed
Yeah.
up as the Grinch. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm with Lamar Hurd on that. I think that the Grinch's origin story is sometimes overlooked. How, I mean, he was just trying to fit in with the Who's in Whoville, and they totally ostracized him for really being a green monster. Let's be real. The Who's in Whoville were absolutely racist against the Grinch. Yeah, I'm going to say it this morning on KNBR, the sports leader. The Who's in Whoville were racist against the Grinch. And he was able, and he went off in seclusion and lived in his cave. And yeah, it's totally justified. But I also want to, Lamar Hurd said he's one of he's like the top 5 misunderstood people in, I guess, the world. So I want to know who else is on his list. He said he didn't know, but I would say probably the Grinch, Kevin Durant probably, because at one point I remember Bob Myers said he's one of the most misunderstood people. Who else would you throw in there, Greg, as misunderstood people in our society?
Ooh, good question. I'm like Lamar Hurd, where I would make the claim and be like, I got to think about the other 4. Most misunderstood. Who's
Jim
the most
Harbaugh?
misunderstood person?
Jim Harbaugh maybe in there.
I don't know. I feel like people kind of get his bit at this point. Like,
some do,
who at
some don't.
KNBR is the most misunderstood? Are we going Young Tony?
Nah, people
Jack
understand
Loader?
his shtick too. Nah, people understand his shtick too. I mean, let's be real. Young Tony, he just doesn't know a lot, and Jack Loader thinks he knows a lot. I would say the most misunderstood person at KNBR. That's tough. Probably. I don't have a good answer for that one, man. I think everyone knows
let's ask the third person of our crew, because we haven't said good morning to Raph yet.
Hey, what's up, Raph?
It's been far too long. Raph, first of all, good morning. Happy holidays.
Morning.
We really appreciate you being up so early a couple days in a row.
Right.
And I'm glad that we get to spend this one with you, and you're making our lives easy here. But first of all, how are you? How's the weather? And also, do you have an answer to most misunderstood person here at the station?
Well, it's good here at the KNBR studios. It's a little rainy. But not too bad. It's just sprinkling. And boy, I would say it'd have to be a tie between all the Kyles that work here. Probably totally misunderstood people.
Kyle Haar.
Yes.
Kyle Chung and Kyle, I'm going to screw up his last name. Philip, what's his last name, Ref?
There's a Bass in there.
Finelli Bass.
There it is.
Finelli Bass. Yeah. See, I misunderstood his last name. Well said, Ref. Well said.
Yeah, I can't help it.
That was a good answer.
Well,
So we got
Great
a Kyle
answer.
hierarchy.
Yeah, I would say Fish, but he doesn't work here anymore. Steve Fishman, who used to be a crazy guy over here.
Wild and crazy guy.
That's before my time. So anyway,
Who's your favorite Kyle amongst the Kyles, Ref?
You know
I'm
what?
going to put you on the spot right now.
That's tough. They're all really good. They're all very special in their own ways. So I can't choose. Okay, Kyle Chung.
Well done, Ref. Well done.
That's a pretty good answer. Yeah, Kyle Chung is not a problem causer in any way. Kyle Hard trained me on my first shift, so got to have some love there. And then Kyle Finelli Bass, just nice guy. Looking forward to seeing him more around the station. So
Yeah.
I got no beef with the Kyles.
No beef with the Kyles. They're all great people.
I hate to do this to Raph after we just included him in the show. He gave a great answer, but we do have to play this song that's been going around social media. Raph is a Chicago Bears fan, and Raph is such a good KNBR employee and Bears fan to the point where it brings me pain to see them lose, and I have no attachment to the Chicago Bears whatsoever, other than Jay Cutler being our type 1 diabetic ambassador for a little bit there. But there's a song going on. The Chicago Bears were close to being 5-2. A Hail Mary happened, and they have not had their 5th win since then. Here's a song that's been going on, and I'm sorry we got to do this to you, Raph, but we need the people to have their content.
On the first loss of district, the Bears they gave to me a heartbreaking Hail Mary. On the second week of district, the Bears they gave to me stomped by the Cards and a heartbreaking Hail Mary. On the third week of district, the Bears they gave to me 3 lousy points stomped by the Cards and a heartbreaking Hail Mary. On the fourth week of district, the Bears they gave to me blocked field goal 3 lousy points stomped by the Cards and a heartbreaking Hail Mary. On the 5th week of district, the Bears they gave to me over overtime tees. Block, field goal, tree, lousy point stomp by the Cards, and a heartbreaking Hail Mary. On the 6th week of district, the Bears they gave to me. No timeout by Flus, overtime tees. Block, field goal, tree, lousy point stomp by the Cards, and a heartbreaking Hail Mary. On the 7th week of district, the Bears they gave to me. New head coach not winning, no timeout by Flus, overtime tees. Block, field goal, tree, lousy point stomped by the Cards, and a heartbreaking Hail Mary. On the 8th week of district, the Bears they gave to me. Monday night meltdown, new head coach not winning, no timeout by Flus, overtime tees. Block, field goal, tree, lousy point stomp by the Cards, and a heartbreaking Hail Mary. On the 9th week of district, the Bears they gave to me. Blowout loss at home, Monday night meltdown, new head coach not winning, no timeout by Flus, overtime tees. Block, field goal, tree, lousy point stomp by the Cards, and a heartbreaking Hail Mary. The Bears.
Beautiful.
So, look, I know the lyrics are hard. I know it's not fun for Chicago Bears fans. I know it's not fun for Raph. I got to admit, it slapped. It was really catchy. The Bears
hard
in the background had the potential to be really annoying. It had the potential to be really, really annoying really quickly. It never got there for me. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it was all right. I would say that I mean, you and I had fun with it. I can surmise that Raph just hated that whole thing. Right, Raph?
Oh, jeez. You know, if you're a new Bears fan, of course, you know, you would hate this and you would hate anything about the Bears this year. But, you know, if you're an old Bears fan like me, you're used to this. This is what happens like all the time. So, oh, man. Hold on.
Yeah, last night was rough.
I was going to say, we didn't even add the 10th game, which was last night. And I don't know what that would be. Like, Caleb Williams' interception streak ending, another 3 lousy points, part 2. Raph, is there a game in this losing streak, which I guess could include the Hail Mary, that just upset you the most? Raph's being a good guy in the studio, doing actual work. I'm trying to think, if there was a game that would have upset me the most during this losing streak, probably the Hail Mary, just sort of the beginning of the end. But the Matt Eberflus clock blunder on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I mean, that on national TV, I don't care if your season's over at that point. It's the Detroit Lions. They're the number 1 seed. You were out of the game. You came all the way back. And then to have that happen, it's just like that goes beyond numbness. That brings back pain beyond the numbness to me.
Egregious end to a football game that Matt Eberflus did not call timeout. Caleb Williams is also guilty in that situation. He's a rookie. Got the same deal last night. Like, I was watching that game, and Caleb Williams, he said in the post game that he got hit in the throat, and that's why he wasn't able to get to the line of scrimmage in time, and they had to call a timeout. There was whole snafu of whether they were going to punt the football back or they were going to go for it on 4th and 5. They ended up getting it, but just terrible clock management. Caleb Williams, he kind of makes up excuses and, oh, it's my first time, and, oh, the Bears fans are always going to complain. They've complained since before I got here. He needs to learn how to be a pro. Yep, got hit in the throat. You know what? A lot of quarterbacks get hit in the throat, man. This is the league now. So I wonder what's going to look like next year when supposedly Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, takes the Bears job. That's what the rumor is, but I don't know if that's the best situation for him.
Here's the thing, guys.
Ben Johnson. Go ahead, Raph.
Well, if you think about it, when we start next year, he'll be already on his 3rd offensive coordinator. So
that's true.
It's a little rough for a rookie to, you know, and he's a little emotional. And I you know what, as a Bear fan, I don't mind. He's going to have maybe the 5th or 6th highest passing total for a season for a Bears quarterback. So that's pretty nuts.
And sorry, Raph, not to correct you, but I think it'll be his 4th offensive coordinator because they've had 3 this year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They had Shane Waldron to start the year. Then Thomas Brown got elevated, but then he was named head coach. And then they put somebody else at OC. So, yeah, it's a great situation for a first-time QB.
It's tough. You know, I mean, it's tough. It's tough being a Bears fan. You know, that's all I got to say.
I can imagine.
Well, let's pivot from the Bears to the team that the Bears made look really good, because we had the 49ers thinking, oh, they might make a playoff push after they beat the Bears, and it turned out that that wasn't going to happen. But we are going to take a break now. Very quick segment on the other side before we get ready to talk to the 49ers general manager and president of football operations, and John Lynch. All the goofiness is about to go out the window so we can have a good conversation with John Lynch, who was kind enough to join us during the holiday week. He doesn't get time off. He's no Murph and Marcus. It's Papa and Silver filling in for Murph and Marcus on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Faithful Murph and Marcus keep your morning moving. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
I mean, I still feel the same about him, that I believe he's going to be our guy. I mean, everyone's got to perform and do things like that, and I think he has had a tough year. You know, I think before his high ankle sprain, I think he was missed one. I think he was 12 or 13 before that, so I thought he was doing really well, and then had a high ankle sprain to his kicking foot. Since he's come back, he hasn't been as consistent, obviously, but I think a lot of that probably has to do with that. Hopefully he can get to the off season, heal up, and find his stroke again, and play at a high level that I think he will, because he's real talented. I think he's made of the right stuff, just from a mental standpoint and everything, and I think he has all the tools to be a great kicker in this league. He's still working to find that, though.
Kyle Shanahan talking about his kicker, Jake Moody, and the inconsistencies that have occurred since his high ankle sprain he suffered against the Arizona Cardinals in one of their 4 brutal division losses this year. We're pivoting over to the 49ers. Thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Silver. He's Derek Papa. We got Raf Corral back in the studio, making this all happen and keeping the lights on, as the YouTube chat said a little bit earlier. So, Derek, 49ers officially eliminated from playoff contention. Even before kickoff in Miami last week, they lose. They fall to 6-9 by a score of 29-17. And now they got to face the team that they ended, the Detroit Lions, in the NFC Championship. I'm not blind to this from last year when the 49ers went into Philly and completely took it to them. It was 10 months in the making of a beating. The Detroit Lions, for all the injuries they have on the defensive side of the ball, they're probably going to come in and score a lot of points on a 49ers defense that has been fairly injured this year and not right themselves. But that doesn't mean that the 49ers can't have some important takeaways. And at this point, they're just trying to get to the end of the season. That's also not to say that there's no value in these final 2 weeks.
No, of course not. And we were talking about the other day, I mean, yes, the defense is decimated for the Detroit Lions, but the offensive line for the 49ers is decimated right now. You got Trent Williams out for the last 2 games, along with Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks. I mean, we were talking about maybe Brock Purdy should sit these last 2 games with a makeshift offensive line right now, but they're not going to do that. He's going to play these games. They just got to play for pride right now. Dre Greenlaw, too, is not going to play the last 2 games. That's going to be interesting for his free agency stock in the offseason. Yeah, the Niners just need to prove that they're not dead yet. I mean, they are in playoff. They're eliminated from the playoff contention, obviously, but they still want to show signs of life. They want to, beat up on the team that they beat up a year ago in the NFC Championship game. They want to, the Arizona Cardinals are eliminated too, but they want to have a strong finish against them. Yeah, I mean, they just want to show that there's signs of life for this team next offseason. And there's going to be a lot of moves that need to be made. Or maybe not. Maybe they just run it back and, they pay Brock Purdy. I really don't know what their game plan is for this offseason. But yeah, it's been a very disappointing season. And I'm glad that Kyle Shanahan said something about Jake Moody. I think that we make too much of Jake Moody, his missed field goals. I understand that it's been rough at times, but he's been injured this year. You look at other kickers like Justin Tucker or Evan McPherson. Guys miss kicks. He's fairly early in his career. You played on the show with my pops. The John Gruden talking about Sebastian Janikowski early on in his career. He was missing kicks. Everybody just calm down on Jake Moody. There's bigger fish to fry when it comes to the 49ers' problems right now.
Yeah, Jake Moody is one of many pieces that have not been right for the 49ers. I mean, how many pieces or players have been better than they were last year? Maybe George Kittle, because he's had a really good year. J.P. Mason, Diamador Lenore. Like, it's a really short list when you look at it overall. I do think with Jake Moody, though, there's a conversation to be had that you can bring in some competition at training camp. That doesn't mean you got to cut him. It doesn't mean that you got to do anything drastic. You're already eliminated from the playoffs, and he has a big leg. But the reality is that he missed a lot of kicks after coming back from the high ankle sprain. And then even the one he missed before the high ankle sprain was a really crucial one down at SoFi Stadium in week 3 that cost them that blown game against the Rams. It was one of the ingredients that led to that collapse. So I think it's worth him talking about. I don't think it's worth making a big reaction over, but I do think there's a conversation to be had, and it's more the theme that everything is on the table. We'll continue this conversation on the other side, Derek, but we'll go ahead, take our break now so that we can get to John Lynch on time when he does call in. John Lynch, we want to make sure we are valuable of his time because I know he's got a hard out at about 8 o'clock. So we want to make sure we make the most of that conversation. It's Derek Papa, Greg Silver, John Lynch next on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Now, from the O'Donnell Financial Group Sports Desk, learn more at odfigroup.com. O'Donnell Financial Group, because planning is a process, not a product.
It's a full day on the KNBR airwaves. We'll have John Lynch joined us around 7:45, Mark Spears at 8:30, and then triple bowl games after the show, starting with the Armed Forces Bowl between Oklahoma and Navy, then the Birmingham Bowl between Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt, and then rounding things out with the Liberty Bowl between Texas Tech and Arkansas. Keep it tuned right here on 104.5 FM, 680 AM, or however you stream the Sports Leader.
faithful Murph and Marcus keep your morning moving. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Now it's 3rd and 8 as the Niners are back on the 16-yard line. Red zone woes again. Brock looks left, throws, caught Deebo Samuel, and he'll be chopped down.
No, he
Fighting,
won't.
breaking tackles. He goes into the end zone, Deebo style. Touchdown, San Francisco.
Well, like we just said, they may be eliminated from the playoffs, but that doesn't mean there's not much to play for. And Deebo Samuel, after a rough Thursday night game against the Los Angeles Rams, certainly received the message. That right there, a touchdown on 3rd and 16. And as Greg Papa said, old school Deebo style, the way he was breaking tackles and getting into the end zone for his second receiving touchdown of the year. Now I'm with Derek Papa, and we are moments away from connecting with 49ers general manager and president of football operations, John Lynch. And Derek, while we wait for John Lynch to get connected, just kind of your thoughts on what you saw out of Deebo Samuel, because we were fairly hard on him one of the last times we reconvened with the social media and making noise and then not going out and performing. I do think that's the kind of thing you have to wear after the fact, but he also deserves credit for the response against Miami.
No, he does. He had a great performance, probably one of his best games of the season. I believe it was 7 catches for 96 yards and ran pretty well too. But let's be real, prior to that, he had less than 22 yards from scrimmage for 5 straight weeks. So, and I had a feeling that he wanted to play a little better when he's going up against one of his favorite coaches in Mike McDaniel. But I do have to believe that maybe, coming up this offseason, that maybe we see the last of Deebo Samuel as a San Francisco 49er just because of his expiring contract. And we have John Lynch on the phone.
So here we have John Lynch, and let's get to it.
He's humble.
Coach Walsh, without you, I'm not standing on this stage today.
He's lifted the Lombardi. He's earned the gold jacket. And now he's laser focused on a championship for the faithful. Here's 49ers GM and Hall of Famer John Lynch with Murph and Marcus on KNBR, the sports leader.
Well, we do it every week here on the KNBR Morning Show, and even when some of our guys take time off, one man who does not stop is 49ers general manager and president of football operations, John Lynch. John, great to be with you. Greg Silver, Derek Papa here with you on a little Christmas Friday. First of all, appreciate your time and happy holidays. How was everything for you?
Yeah, happy holidays, guys. And I guess we'll start off with, somebody's got to work, right? You had a great Christmas. This stage of our lives, we're about to become empty nesters. Our last one of 4 is a senior in high school. So the blessing for us is, we got all of our kids home for a little bit. Anytime that happens, I'm happy. So wonderful Christmas. Looking forward to finishing this year off and having a great 2025.
So, John, a lot of rookies played big roles for you guys this season. Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa getting starting roles, and obviously, Ricky Pearsall dealt with a lot to start his NFL career. How would you evaluate your 2024 rookie class?
Yeah, really proud of the guys. We had a feel right away. The football character, the overall character of this group was really special, and we had a lot of guys that we felt could handle and would be good players for us for a long time, but also had the ability to come in and help us right away. Now, I would tell you that I don't think we believed that everybody would get thrust into action this soon, and they did. And you look at Ricky Pearsall, obviously his journey has been, much chronicled from, what happened down in San Francisco, his fight back. And, I think Ricky's going to be a really good football player. We know that. And I think we would have seen a lot more of that had he not had what happened to him, go on. Dominic Pooney has been tremendous for us from the start. He's been a plug-and-play guy, and he's played at a really high level. And I think Dom's seeing the realities of an NFL season, the amount of games, the endurance that you have to work up. But he's been tremendous for us. You mentioned Malik Mustafa. Malik has been tremendous for us. all year. He's going to be a force. He's an explosive player. He sees the game well. When he sees it, he goes and gets it. It's everything you could ask for in a draft choice. Jacob Cowing, I think, is coming on, and I've got all the confidence in the world that Cowing's going to be an explosive player. Garindo is another explosive player. So some common traits of toughness and speed, to this group. Tatum Bethune is coming back this year. Even a guy who wasn't drafted, like Evan Anderson, playing at a high level for us, in a rotational defensive tackle for us. So all in all, these guys are made of the right stuff, and they're going to help us into the future. And you've got to stay young in this league. You got to constantly churn your roster, and it's a young man's league, and we like to have a good mix of really polished vets who have seen it all, and then young guys, and these guys have done a great job of kind of infusing our team with some of that youth and energy that you need.
John, we love the general manager here in the Bay Area, but I'm also really fascinated by the player and Hall of Famer, John Lynch. And you appeared in the playoffs 7 times in your 17-year career, so not every Week 17 you had was playing for a postseason or a quote-unquote meaningful game, but you as a player are the last person that would have ever given up or not played hard. So just talk about, as a player, what it's like to still go out there and play your heart out, even if you knew your season was going to end before January.
Well, I've had players a lot ask me, gosh, you were involved in situations like this where your season was over before it was over. I said, guys, you guys have no clue. I was drafted by the Buccaneers in 1993. We were the worst franchise in all of sport. So 93, 94, 95, 96. It wasn't until 97, I believe, that we got to the playoffs. So there were plenty of seasons. But, that's why I take it a little personal. And I find it, I don't want to say disrespectful, because people are just doing their jobs, but like asking guys, do you plan on finishing this season? Hell yeah. This is what I do. This is what I'm paid to do. And forget about playing. You get an opportunity to go out there, an opportunity that so many people would love to have, and go out there and play. That's what we do. And so there's so much to play for. At times, do you have to make decisions if a guy's nicked or whatnot? Absolutely, but that's on the team. But for the players, I hate the fact that in today's world they're asked those questions, because when I was it's just what you did, and I believe we've got the right mindset and the right type of guys who believe that that's what they do. And sometimes certain situations, injuries can prevent them from doing that. But absolutely, you take any opportunity to go out there and hone your craft, play for the guy next to you, have your buddies back. All those things is why you play. And it's not somewhere where we want to be again, but we're here this year. Can't believe we're here, but we are, and we have to accept that. We have to learn from it. We can't just chalk it up to, there were a lot of injuries. Well, the team we're playing, Detroit, they had a lot of injuries, but they found a way, and so. We got to look at the root. We have been looking at the root causes. We'll fix it. We got a lot of great players and a lot of great people that we want to be a part of the solution moving forward, and we'll go find the other parts of our team to get us back to where we belong, and that's competing for championships. And I'm confident in our plan to do that, and that's exactly what we plan on doing after we finish off this season, which starts Monday night against Detroit.
So, yeah, it's an NFC Championship rematch this Monday. Being a former defensive player, how difficult would it be to prepare for a Ben Johnson offense with eligible offensive linemen and trick plays with stumbling QBs?
Yeah. Forget about the trick plays. Just they're very good at the fundamentals. It's a really well-built team. You look at the quarterback, give Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions a lot of credit. A lot of people... the Rams didn't want Jared Goff anymore. They went and got Matt Stafford. So, but Brad Holmes had a lot of conviction in him and traded. And a lot of people, if you forget, a lot of people at the time thought, what are they doing? They just bailed the Rams out. Well, they found a pretty good guy who fits very well, and they built an offense around him. Really good offensive line. They've continued to add. You look at the tight end position. You got Sam Laporta, a really explosive tight end. You look at the running back position, they got David Montgomery. After a couple years of being there, then they get Gibbs to kind of complement him. You go out to the receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, tremendous draft choice. You add Jamison Williams, who's a speed guy. They make moves like a Tim Patrick, a guy who had been oft injured, but he's a really good fit for what they do. So, and when you just look at the base fundamentals, just simply running the football, they do that extremely well. They play the play action game really well. And then you throw all the trick plays and all those out there. It's a challenge. They kind of have it all. They have the strength, the power, the thought behind everything they do, the concepts, the detail, the speed. They're a well-honed machine, and it's a huge challenge for us.
Talking to John Lynch here on the Yuma guest line. And John, one thing I want to ask you about, and I know you have a lot of time coming up to reflect on this 2024 season, but I saw that the fourth quarter point differential for the 49ers this year was minus 53, and some of those late game losses were really tough and defined what ended up being the season and why it went the way it did. When you look back at some of those games and the late losses, are you able to pinpoint a few common causes for why those games ended up the way they did?
Yeah, we have, and we'll continue to do that. Sometimes you have to step away and take in the totality of it, but we haven't finished, and that's something we really pride ourselves in. We pride ourselves in having players who are finishers. We pride ourselves in collectively finishing. I think you look at our defense, going into last week, I believe we were the third ranked defense when it comes to yards, but I think in key situations, third down, you got to be able to get off the field, red zone defense, things of that nature. Turnovers. We all know how important turnovers. There was one point of this season, where we were fourth in the league, I believe, and now we've gone on a drought. And so the things that you have to do to finish people in this league, we haven't done. And that's a great question, because it's something we have to address. And again, guys like Christian McCaffrey help finish games. Guys like Trent Williams, you don't think a left tackle. So those guys are part of that reason, but we can't just chalk it up to that. We got to go deeper and think there's ways that we could have still gotten it done. When you have division opponents up multiple scores in fourth quarters, you have to put people away. And that's what we didn't do this year, and we have to own that. We have to get to the bottom of why exactly it happened, and every decision we make, every time we hit a practice field or a workout, you got to have that in mind, that we're not going to be this team again. We're going to go finish people the way, frankly, we have for the last few years. So, but you got to earn that, and we didn't earn it this year, and hopefully we can earn it in these last couple weeks, and then go change it so that we can, on the collective, going into 2025.
You mentioned you were drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1993, but prior to that, you were drafted by the Florida Marlins in 1992. And just as a former baseball player, I want to get your thoughts on the passing of Bay Area legend Ricky Henderson.
Yeah, it's that was really sad. Keena Turner told me down in Miami that Ricky had passed, and we have Michael Zagaris, the photographer that's been around the Niners forever, and Z was close with Ricky, and we were talking in the locker room prior to that game. He said he had just seen Ricky like a month ago, and he still looked like he could play, and Ricky, I'm a Padre fan and grew up in San Diego, and Ricky had some time there. The one thing that always, there's a lot of retired baseball players that live down in San Diego, good place to live, I guess. And a lot of those guys are my buddies, and, the love that they had for Ricky as a teammate, the admiration for the player, and then the humor of Ricky, all those things are things that, I had an occasion to meet him once or twice, and he's just one of those legends. And leading off games, he was a guy who looked like a football player playing baseball. I mean, his hamstrings were popping out of his uniform, and just a unique athlete who had speed, who had power, who was really a special baseball player. Sounds like a special human being. So, thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and we'll miss him for sure.
Yeah, we got to talk to Michael Zagaris, Greg Papa and I, on Monday, and he was one of our great interviews that day to hear about Ricky Henderson and his impact. And John, we know that you got a busy schedule, so we'll let you go now. We really appreciate the time here on KNBR on a Friday morning, and best of luck on Monday. Happy holidays to you and your family, and Happy New Year in 2025.
Yeah, thank you. All of that to you guys and everybody out there. And let's go have a good one against Detroit. They're going to come ready to. If you hear Dan Campbell talk, they're not leaving anything behind in Detroit. I'm sure they have a bad taste for what happened out here in the NFC Championship. So we got to be up to that challenge.
Absolutely, John. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks,
John.
guys.
That is 49ers general manager and president of football operations, John Lynch, kind enough to stop by on a Friday. And Derek, I know there's a lot of things that we could have asked. I know that John gave some great answers for what we did end up asking him. Let's start with what he was able to discuss, and then we can get into some of what we would have loved to ask him beyond the time that we did have today. I think that kind of hearing his perspective as a player is something that I always really appreciate as someone who tries to analyze this game and constantly learn here in a new role. And interesting to hear him talk about getting drafted to an organization that was bottom of the league. Because I think that when you grow up and you look at sports figures who were a little bit before your time, and Ricky Henderson, one of those guys, by the way, for me, you look at it backwards. It's like there's the guy who's already a legend, already a Hall of Famer, but you don't necessarily think of the fact that somebody like a John Lynch was drafted to a team that was really struggling and took a while to get competitive. And you know how competitive someone like John Lynch is, but there's still a lot to play for. And when he talked about being borderline offended and disrespected at the notion like, oh, do you still play hard? It's like, in a way, it's a testament to the success the 49ers have had during the Lynch and Shanahan tenure. In another way, these are professionals. It's their job. Of course, they got to go put in some effort. So I enjoyed hearing that firsthand, just from the player perspective.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've seen enough like documentaries back in the day of John Lynch's playing days, like In Their Own Words or A Football Life on NFL Network, where he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1993. Think about that for a second. Like, for those that know the history, Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks were drafted in 1995. So there were some lean years before Tony Dungy showed up. And to tell like John Lynch, well, these games don't matter. Every game mattered to establish that culture that the Buccaneers were able to become one of the best defenses of all time. And I should know, I mean, God, I still get nightmares of John Lynch mic'd up against the Raiders in that 2002 Super Bowl where he called out every every offensive signal, and he's going to Mike Tomlin on the sideline being like, they're doing everything we ran in practice. God, I hated that so much. But no, like to tell John Lynch, who's a Hall of Fame, he's a Hall of Famer. He played in this league for, God, I think 13 years, to tell him these games don't matter down the stretch. You're out of your mind. Like, that's why I love that right now in the Bay Area, between the Giants, 49ers, and Warriors, it's three former players in John Lynch, Mike Dunleavy Jr., and Buster Posey. So if any players are like, I'm taking this off, I don't want to play, they're like, are you out of your mind? Do you know how much of it's a gift right now they get to play in this league. So you should bust your ass every single day to play. And I was going to ask him, he kind of answered it, but the balance he has to have as a former player and now being a general manager of what's best for the team. You know, you want to be competitive these last two games, but is it in the best interest to sit Dre Greenlaw when he goes to free agency and he's dealing with an ankle injury? Is it best for, a 38-year-old, or I believe he's 38, but Trent Williams to sit the last two games of the season? Like, what's best for the team overall? And then, they still want to go out there and compete against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions have something to play for. Not only are they trying to wrap up the 1 seed in the NFC, but they're trying to get revenge for, honestly, kind of just, really questionable decision-making in those fourth down decisions that Dan Campbell did a year ago. But yeah, I mean, John Lynch is not going to lay down for these last 2 weeks, and anyone should know that from, I like that Brian Murphy asked him this a week ago, but him getting in Devondre Campbell's face and saying, you're not going to play? All right, hit the showers. You're done here. So I have no doubts in my mind. I know that there's a lot of question marks this offseason of what are the Niners going to do to retool themselves and how are they going to be back in the NFC Championship game and possibly the Super Bowl. You could say they could run it back and bring back everybody, or they can, be aggressive and maybe make some changes. Whatever it's going to be, I do have faith that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan will make the right decisions.
I'll tell you that you're listening to KNBR and KNBR FM, San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station, as we got about an hour to go here on the Murph and Marcus morning show on a post-Christmas Friday here. Appreciate everybody hanging out. 808 KNBR, the number if you'd like to join the conversation. Also, big hello to the YouTube chat. Rockin' New Era saying, I should grow out the beard. I don't think that would go over well with many of the people in my life, but, we'll see about that. We also talk about Devondre Campbell from Rockin' New Era as well, and I think that's a good point. And Derek, I know that the Devondre Campbell story and discussion has been exhausted at this point. But I'm over it. I do think, and I'm with you, I'm over it, but I also think it has a chance to be a blessing in disguise in terms of reaffirming the tone and the culture that the 49ers want to set in 2025. This season went wrong for a lot of reasons. I'm not in the camp of they got to get rid of Lynch, they got to get rid of Shanahan and overhaul everything. But I also think there does need to be some kind of roster overhaul because you're going to pay Brock Purdy in this offseason. So this whole notion of last dance, I think we're finding out wasn't this year, it was really last year. And that's unfortunate and tough to come to terms with when you're so close to winning a Super Bowl. You got Patrick Mahomes on the ropes and you just can't quite finish the job enough to lift a Lombardi trophy. I know that hurts, and we saw what kind of weight that held on the 49ers heading into this year. A lot of things didn't go their favor. We're talking health and injuries and all that. But I do think the one thing you can have when you don't necessarily know what your roster is going to look like next year, you got to reaffirm what kind of culture you have. You're still going to have Brock Purdy. You're going to have Christian McCaffrey, but you're also going to have some new guys into the mix as well. Diamador Lenore is going to be there, but Charvarius Ward might not. We don't know the future for Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw. Fred Warner is still getting paid. Nick Bosa is still getting paid, but kind of like the Golden State Warriors, Derek, it's going to be a mix of these old vets who have accomplished a lot and have a lot of football mileage. And there's also going to need to be an immediate injection of young players like Ricky Pearsall or maybe JP Mason or maybe Isaac Garendo if JP Mason leaves in free agency. Like, there's going to be a need for these younger players to contribute because older players who have accomplished a lot are going to be less plentiful and they're going to have more football wear and tear on their bodies.
Yeah, and I would tell fans this offseason, if the Niners do not make big splashes in free agency, expect that. Because I don't expect them to go out and make big trades this offseason. I don't. They need to account for what's going to happen with Brock Purdy. They are going to pay him, whether you like it or not. We can all debate, should it be 65 or 60 or 55? Regardless of what the number is going to be, they are going to pay Brock Purdy. So you need to expect that. I don't know if it's going to kick in right away or they're going to be, hamstrung and what they could do salary cap wise. But I think this is going to be a turning point this offseason where it's not going to be so much big free agency spending and trades. I think it's going to be where they have to build from the draft. They're going to have to get younger, and they're going to have to establish a culture that when you bring in veteran guys that a lot of them don't understand. Like, I'm not debating that Leonard Floyd knows what it's like to win in this league, but he wasn't there a year ago when they lost the Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs. And now, you look at Devondre Campbell and John Lynch and Kyle talked about how difficult it is to bring guys in from the outside and want to be all in for this season. And they said they made a mistake at bringing in Devondre Campbell because they heard stuff from his past that maybe he's not all in sometimes or he had a bad situation with the Green Bay Packers, the way things ended. But yeah, I think that they're going to have to make some changes. We'll see who's here next year. But the bottom line is they're going to have to build from within. They're going to have to build starting with the draft. And yeah, they're going to have to build the offensive line, build the defensive line. And yeah, I think that, they're going to have to, keep establishing that culture that's been there in the past. And I do wonder about Talanoa Hufanga. I do wonder about Dre Greenlaw because Brock Purdy is going to get paid. And you got to think about, they paid Diamador Lenore, they paid Brandon Ayuk. What does that mean for a Talanoa Hufanga who, pretty much already has a replacement in Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown, these younger guys in the safety department? I think Dre Greenlaw is going to be here, but I do wonder about, he only played a game and a little bit in the Miami game. So I know he's a part of this culture, and he's one of the best non-rush linebackers in this league. But from where he was, a season ago to tearing his Achilles in the Super Bowl to missing most of the season this year, having a great first half against the Rams, I don't know if you could put a lot of money into him for the long term of giving him a multi-year contract, maybe a 1-year deal to know that he could play a full 17 games. But I'm not sure about giving Dre Greenlaw a multi-year contract.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Dre Greenlaw if he gets offered a lot of money by other teams and where the 49ers have to go decision-wise. We'll go ahead, take a break now, continue the conversation on the other side. I believe that we do technically have to hit our big hit, which will just be continuing the conversation on John Lynch.
I don't mind taking a big hit in the morning, my friend. Never mind that.
Yeah, you'll take a big hit, but you won't take coffee, weirdo. We'll continue the conversation. Get ready for Mark Spears coming up.
Out there.
He is better. Every time I have this cup, which I'm about to go refill, I feel a little bit of guilt in my soul, and that's okay. I've embraced it, and we're going to get through this 6 to 9 show on a Christmas Friday, December 27th. It's Derek 59. Papa, Greg Silver. Thank you, Raph. Derek Papa, Greg Silver. More coming up as we get ready for Mark Spears and continue reacting to John Lynch on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Richmond, shout out to you for supporting KNBR, Richmond's sports leader.
Now, from the O'Donnell Financial Group Sports Desk. Learn more at odfigroup.com. O'Donnell Financial Group, because planning is a process, not a product.
It's a full day on the KNBR airwaves. We'll have Mark Spears at 8:30 and then triple bowl games after the show, starting with the Armed Forces Bowl between Oklahoma and Navy, then the Birmingham Bowl between Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt, and then rounding things out with the Liberty Bowl between Texas Tech and Arkansas. Keep it tuned right here on 104.5 FM, 680 AM, or however you stream the sports leader.
And now, time for the Protect Your Assets with David Hollander Business and Technology Report. This has been the Protect Your Assets with David Hollander Business and Technology Report. Concerned inflation will ruin your dream retirement? Learn more. Listen to David's show every Saturday morning on KNBR or call 1-866-PROTECT.
Now.
This is the Big Hit.
Sponsored by Benjamin Moore Paints. Experience the Benjamin Moore retail difference at their independently owned authorized retailers today or at benjaminmoore.com.
On KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM, the sports leader.
Greg Silver, Derek Papa hanging out with you up until 9 o'clock. And then we got 3 bowl games going back to back to back. And we didn't have any bowl games interrupting us on the front end, Derek. So we got a full 3 hours today. Our big hit is really just all encompassing, sandwiching our 2 guests. We just heard from John Lynch. And then we got Mark Spears coming up in a little bit. So kind of a general reaction to all of it. And something that I was thinking about with John Lynch, and I know that right now he's not thinking about the draft. I know he can only say so much on the air about personnel decisions, but it is clear that Brock Purdy, they got to find ways to make his life a little bit more comfortable. I don't think it's entirely fair to judge Brock Purdy entirely different because of the situation he was in from this year to last year. Most any quarterback would have had a lot more struggles. But it is fair to say that Brock Purdy had a down year. He had some limitations. He was not hitting certain throws, and he was holding onto the ball a lot. Some of that had to do with receivers not separating very well or not always getting blocked the best. It's not all on him, but the bottom line is whatever your stance on Purdy, whatever you think in terms of how much he should get paid, if he should be a top of the market, reset the market kind of quarterback, like most quarterbacks in the NFL, not named Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, maybe 1 or 2 other guys, you need a good foundation around your QB, and they're going to have to find ways to retool the offense to make his life easy so that he can get back to his superpowers, which is processing, decision-making, running Kyle Shanahan's offense like a well-oiled machine. He was not doing that very effectively this year. It's not all on him, but they got to make life more comfortable for him.
Yeah, and the biggest guy that needs to be back is Christian McCaffrey. Because if you were watching that Miami game and how many times Tua Tagovailoa threw to a running back out of the backfield, it makes you miss Christian McCaffrey. Because Brock Purdy was dealing with so many 3rd and longs this season where he was running around, he was trying to make a play with his legs, and he really improved his mobility this season. But you need those 3rd and manageables next season, the 3rd and 4s, the 3rd and 5s, the 3rd and 3s where he can hand off to McCaffrey or throw it to him in the flat. He misses McCaffrey so much. And that was a problem this year. And, of course, the injuries, across the board, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams. But, yeah, I mean, I understand the trepidation to give Brock Purdy the contract because, yes, he doesn't wow you with his skill set. I've said before, and I'll say it again, that I think Jordan Love overall is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy just because of the tangibles, what flashes at the combine, his arm strength, his mobility, stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that Brock Purdy can't lead this Kyle Shanahan offense. It's kind of similar to Tua Tagovailoa with the Miami Dolphins. Do I think Tua's the best quarterback ever? No. Do I think he has a great arm? Yes. Do I think he's a one-read quarterback that if it's not diagrammed up to him perfectly, that he kind of freaks out a little bit? Yes. But in the end, they paid him $53 million a year. And is Jared Goff the best quarterback of football right now? No, he's having a great season, but he's doing a great job at Ben Johnson's offense. So they paid him $53 million a year. It makes no sense not to pay Brock Purdy. You have to pay Brock Purdy. I understand, why would you pay him $60 million or $65 million? He's not that type of quarterback. I get that, but that's just the market right now. Let me ask you, though, Greg. Very similar quarterbacks. Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy. Sam Darnold is having a career year right now with the Minnesota Vikings and probably going to win comeback player of the year after Russell Wilson struggled a little bit with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Which quarterback would you feel comfortable paying more right now? And I'm not saying they're going to get the same number, but would you feel more comfortable in the Minnesota Vikings giving Sam Darnold maybe a 2-year deal for like $40 million as opposed to the San Francisco 49ers giving Brock Purdy a five-year contract for $62 million?
I mean, Brock Purdy is also, 25 years old?
Yes.
To have that at your disposal is pretty nice. And I do think he's better than Jimmy G, who, by the way, Jimmy was actually playing pretty well the year that he got hurt and Purdy replaced him. So I think, it could be a lot worse. They're going to pay him. And look, Brock Purdy, he could reset the market early in the offseason because as soon as the 49ers season ends, which is going to be on January 5th, they could start that negotiation. So he might not even be the highest paid quarterback by the time that the next season comes around if he breaks that mark. And that's just kind of the way it goes.
I guarantee you he will not.
In the NFL.
I guarantee you he will not. Sorry to cut you off, but Josh Allen, somebody, people are going to freak out at the number initially, and then Josh Allen or somebody else is going to reset the market right after Brock Purdy. It's always going to change.
Well, I want to go back to your Jared Goff example for a moment here, because I think that's a really good analogy to go and use. Jared Goff, and I've watched him for a long time, back to his days at Cal. He got shipped out of LA. He went to Detroit. They were in a complete rebuild. And I think that first year, as a team, they kind of overachieved, staying competitive in a lot of games, but their roster was not good whatsoever. And they had a first-time head coach with a new team. It was a lot to work on. Jared Goff, then you see they get Penei Sewell. Amon-Ra St. Brown starts to emerge. Oh, you get a couple of running backs. Wait, this offensive line's really good. And it just kept building. So Jared Goff, we saw what it looked like when they went 3-13-1 and how much he struggled when he had basically no support. But we've also seen what Jared Goff has looked like this year when he should be on the short list of MVP candidates because he has a lot of things going well. And this is not to discredit Jared Goff in any way or give him too much credit when things are going bad. I think it just goes to show, Derek, for most quarterbacks in the NFL, and I'm even talking about tier 2, tier 3 guys outside of the cream of the crop, best of the best that can do the freakish things. I mean, football is so much of a team and a scheme game. Coaching matters a lot. Personnel matters a lot. And Brock Purdy, I think, was caught in the crossfire of the best situation and one of the top situations you could possibly be in when everyone was healthy for the 49ers and what it's come to this year. I don't think that the truth of what Brock Purdy is or what he can be, yeah, he's probably not going to have a lot of years like he did last year, but for Brock Purdy to expect that he is regressing and will continue to regress, I think that one offseason could fix a lot to do with the 49ers, and by fixing the 49ers with their roster, that could really help Brock Purdy in a lot of ways with a few simple fixes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have no doubts in my mind that this offseason Kyle is going to grow as a coach. I mean, he's still one of the best coaches in this league, but I think he's going to I hear when Steve Young comes on with us and he's like, Kyle needs to reinvent himself. I get that. But also, which coaches have a losing season and then go, all right, well, you know what? We're just going to run it back and do the same thing all over again. No, Kyle's going to change things, and Brock is going to change things. Like, I think that he's just trying too much this year. And, you could say, like, well, of course he has to. Like, he's the quarterback. He has to make up for all the guys that are not out there. And he's improved his mobility and throwing ability this year, in my opinion. But there's, things like the Ram game where he had Ricky Pearsall down the right sideline or Patrick Taylor in the flat over the middle. Instead, he goes for the big play, trying to score a touchdown, and throws it to a covered Juwan Jennings, and it gets picked off. He needs to make the smarter plays again. So I have no doubt in my mind that Brock Purdy could be, a better quarterback in this league. And yeah, as I said, I know people are going to freak out once he gets whatever number he's going to get, and it's probably going to be in the 55 to 60 range. But you know what? That's what quarterbacks are getting this time around. Like, I remember a couple years ago or 5 years ago when Derek Carr got his contract and he reset the market. And even I, as a Raider fan, was like, duh, Derek shouldn't be making that amount of money. But he did. And then Jimmy got paid. And I was like, Jimmy really shouldn't be getting that money. And then Jared Goff should be not making that money. And that's just the cycle. That's what happens. When the next quarterback's deal is up, they're going to reinvent the wheel when it comes to a quarterback contract. So I think everybody needs to calm down. Brock Purdy's going to get paid, and he's going to improve as a player. And I will say one thing about him. He does need to improve some things, and also he needs to not be so hard on himself in the post-game pressers. He is way too down on himself. I know that he wants to be the leader of the team, and he said he wants to play with more of a chip on his shoulder next year. I'm not quite sure what he means by that. But when I hear him and say, like, put the loss on me, I let my team down today, I don't care about the injuries, I get all that. And he's just, he has to say that in the press conferences. But, like, I think he needs to not be more confident, but just know that, yeah, he's the leader of this football team. He is, one of the leaders of this football team. He is the quarterback of the future. They found this guy as Mr. Irrelevant. You want to do that all over again? You want to go get Kirk Cousins, who's not looking great this year, or Aaron Rodgers, who's not looking great? There are no other options, and he's the best option, in my opinion.
We're going to talk to Mark Spears coming up. And yeah, 49ers, we'll keep this conversation going. I'll be out at Levi's Stadium on Monday. Greg Papa will be on the call, but he will not be back on the shows until January 2nd. So it's going to be yours truly and Kerry Crowley that day. Mark Spears coming up next.
Hold on.
What are we talking about? What?
Hold on. Greg Papa is doing the game that day, but he can't be bothered to do the show with you?
I just read the programming schedule.
Well,
it's a Kerry
I'm
Crowley
calling him out. I'm calling him out. That's lame as hell. Lame as hell.
And Derek Carr should have split his contract with Derek Papa back when he had the chance.
But I will gladly listen to Kerry Crowley and Greg Silver. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. This is the price we're paying for these remote shows, and all is well here on a Friday. Mark Spears up next on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Dub Nation, Murph and Marcus keep rolling on the sports leader and streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Back out Curry. Curry, three-pointer. In and out. Tip back out. Curry's going to get another chance. Here's the three. Got it. Back to a 5-point game. Offensive rebounds critical. 30 for Curry. James tries a three. Puts it in. LeBron James from downtown. He's got 31.
Two of the greatest to ever do it, and I wish I could be a little bit more sappy about watching these two play and savoring the matchups, and I do savor the matchups, but losing to the Lakers stinks on Christmas, as Derek Papa and I have discussed for about 25 minutes yesterday and 3 hours today. Happy bowl season, everybody. We're going to have 3 bowl games coming up. We're gonna have 3 bowl games coming up after this, and sorry, lot going on here, but the good news is, after we thought we didn't have him, we got him now. It is Mark Spears, senior NBA writer for ESPN and Anscape, and we're here to talk about the Warriors and where they stand in a dicey December here. He joins us courtesy of the Yuma guest line. Mark, appreciate your time as always. Happy holidays. How was your Christmas, my friend?
It was spent in Chase Center. So didn't really have no amazing dinner, but I did go to the Hawaii Bowl at San Jose State.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was super fun other than the ending of the game.
5 OT thriller.
Yeah, came back at 6:30 in the morning, took a quick nap, went to the game, and by the time I got back to the game, man, I was done. So
I can imagine.
So my Christmas was interesting, though.
That's incredible.
Oh, sorry, Derek. We're doing this whole remote thingy. Look, I'll just step in for this one. I got to ask you, Mark, because you were so quick on the sell now train for the Warriors, even when they got off to that hot start. And I don't think I necessarily bought into the 12-3 thinking they were going to the conference finals or they were title contenders, but I was also a little bit more hesitant to be like, they got to make trades now and sell while the stock is high. Why were you so quick to think such early in the season? And what about it told you that their early start being hot was not sustainable?
I just wasn't sold that roster was as good as it went out to be. I think they kind of played over their heads. I've kind of seen this team as Steph Curry and the Miracles, and I just knew that to ask him to carry the offense pretty much by himself was going to ultimately be too much of a task, despite how the strength in numbers appeared early on. There's just too much inconsistency. Kaminga's inconsistent. Wiggins is inconsistent. Everybody else, you don't know what you're going to get from one game to the next. And so when you look at the rest of the teams that are elite in the league, they usually have 2 or 3 stars offensively. The Warriors had 1 and a bunch of really good complementary players. So I just, I didn't buy. I was impressed. I was shocked. I was actually surprised by their start, but I actually thought they should have made the big trade last summer if they could have.
And one of the names that's thrown out there right now in trade rumors is Jimmy Butler. And on Christmas morning, we got the report from Shams Charania that Jimmy Butler would prefer to be traded from the Miami Heat, but it's not a formal trade request yet. And then your colleague, Bobby Marks, says, I don't know if there's going to be a trade, actually, unless Jimmy Butler kind of makes a stink and wants his way out of Miami. And then Pat Riley yesterday releases a statement saying we're not trading Jimmy Butler. So, Mark, from what you know, what right now is the relationship like between Jimmy Butler and Pat Riley? Because I remember last year Jimmy Butler saying, if I would have been in that first-round series against the Boston Celtics, we would have won. Then Pat Riley comes back and says, you need to shut up. What's the relationship like right now?
Very curious, right? I mean,
yeah.
You don't know Pat Riley to come out and say those kind of things. Like, why would you say you aren't trading somebody more than a month before the trade deadline? I don't get what just how that fixes things for the Heat. If Jimmy wants out, it probably just makes him more upset. And then ultimately, what if you get a good offer? I don't think you should ever say nobody's tradable or I'm not trading somebody. And then the thing is, keep in mind that Jimmy Butler is going to be a free agent next summer. So, are you re-signing him? Like, has he signed a contract extension now? Like, that's the part that kind of was left us hanging in this press release to say, I mean, hey, look, Pat Riley's a legend, Hall of Famer. I have extreme respect for him, but I didn't really understand, like, why all of a sudden this trade rumor bothered him so much that he needed to put out a release on it. Like, everybody's tradable at any time. There's always a price, right? So I don't understand why the Heat would say that. And if he's going to be a free agent and he's not going to be happy there, then you're basically going to lose him for nothing, which to me is bad business.
Talking to Mark Spears here on the UMA guest line, and you were out at Chase Center on Christmas, so I got to ask you, what are you making of Steve Kerr's rotations lately? Because I think it's fair to criticize anybody during a losing streak, especially the head coach, but sometimes the answers don't seem all that obvious for who should be out there, and there's just a lot of confusion in general. So just how much of this falls on Steve, and how much of it would you say is more circumstantial roster construction or other kind of factors?
I think it's the latter. This is something we've seen new from Steve, and we got a great sample size from him. To me, I asked him the other day, I'm like, are you lamenting with your son, who's coaching in Santa Cruz, in terms of always having to use some kind of, jagged roster, or like, going game by game? And he kind of scoffed at that question. He's like, hey, my roster's not like my son's roster. But my point is, like, he's basically saying he's going game by game with these lineups. There's all these different injuries. You lost Melton to injury for the season, and now he's traded, obviously. GP3's been in and out. Moody's been hurt lately. Now Steph is out. I don't know that he has the ability to do anything uniform right now because there's been nothing consistent from a health standpoint on this team. Like, Draymond may not play today. So once you come up with something uniform, then the roster tells you something otherwise. So I don't know that Steve is in a position. Maybe he's in a position to have certain rotation in terms of players, but then that one of those guys is out and one of those guys is hurt. So that's why I'm saying to me, it just seems like I remember when I was coaching the Nuggets, not coaching the Nuggets, I never coached the Nuggets. When I was covering the Nuggets, George Karl.
I was going to say.
Yeah. Pee Wee team. George Karl would always say that he had to go back to his CBA coaching days because of their roster at one point, and he actually enjoyed coaching the team when a lot of the guys were out, because it just, it really challenges coaching chops. And I think such is certainly the case for Steve. I don't know that he's enjoying this, but I don't know if there will even be an opportunity to do anything uniform anytime soon.
You've been saying for a while now that if the Warriors aren't winning or doing things to Steph Curry's liking, that he may want out. And I'm sure you saw the interview on Christmas morning where
I never said he may want out. I said that I wouldn't play with fire. I wouldn't assume that he would love it. Yeah. Let me
fair enough.
Clarify that. Yeah.
No, fair enough. But he did kind of say something to Malika Andrews where he said, I want to win desperately. What helps me helps us. And I don't think it'd ever get to the point where he would want to leave the Golden State Warriors. It's just a matter of, is it in the best interest for him to finish his career there? So what'd you make of that comment? And, do you think they'll do everything in their power? Like, he's not going to be out there tonight, but do you think they're going to do everything in these last remaining 3 years to get the maximum of Steph Curry's career?
Yeah, I think so. One thing I will say that I did ask him a couple months ago was how Kobe Bryant ended his career kind of with some lackluster teams. And he basically said he definitely didn't want that for himself. And my thing is, like, you can't just assume that he is so dedicated to be a Warrior the rest of his career that he'll play with mediocrity or less. That's the thing you can't you don't want to assume that, and then the next thing you know, he quietly and privately asked for a trade. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on the Warriors to maintain this, not only as a competitive team, but a championship caliber team. I think there's tremendous pressure on them to do something to push them into that caliber, right? I just don't know what that is. And then when you see Steph and you see him after the game hugging LeBron and hugging all these different guys game by game that he played with the Olympic team, these elite players in the NBA, I just wonder if behind the scenes you're like, man, how long are you going to keep up with that? Like, hey,
yeah.
You ask us out, man. We'd love to have you. We'd love to say we got the means to, you know what I mean? So my thing is, don't put him in a position where he gets so frustrated he pushes that red button, right? So I think it'll be quite interesting to see, what happens at the trade deadline. What can they do? The problem with the Warriors is, a guy that they like, the teams like a lot, Kaminga, he makes $8 million. So if you want Jimmy Butler, if you want Ingram, if you want Zion or Zach LaVine, like if it's, Kaminga that is included, you're going to have to stack contracts to get up to that $40 million, right? So to me, like, I think more than likely it's going to be Wiggins because of the contract situation that would be the guy that gets traded. But then the next question, I was asking Marcus Thompson the other day, I'm like, so what do you do? What is the move that works? What is the trade that works? And when you think about it from a financial standpoint and fit standpoint and what's available standpoint, it's actually kind of perplexing. Like, what is the puzzle to solve the Warriors, right? From the player you trade standpoint to the player you get back standpoint, financial standpoint, it's really, really complicated, and I think it's easy, me included, to say, hey, Mike Dunleavy, you got to do something. But what is that something, and at what cost?
Mark Spears, kind enough to join us here and talk about pressure and expectations and urgency. That's going to shift the conversation for me to Johnathon Kaminga, who has had some great games, and he's closed out the Houston Rockets masterfully a couple times. And then he's had moments like Thursday where it's just not quite always there or consistent. And so I'm going to ask you a fill-in-the-blank question. Johnathon Kaminga is not the player the organization thinks he could be in year 4 because blank.
But consistency. Just consistency. Sense of urgency. The talent is there. I mean, that dunk he had on Christmas was absolutely incredible, right? I mean, just ferocious. So you see stuff like that, and it just teases you, and you're like, wow, this guy could be amazing, and then it just dissipates. And then I think sometimes you see things from a basketball IQ standpoint, which, kind of are mind-boggling. Like when the Lakers make that layup the other day, Kaminga could have helped. He was standing under the basket, but his back was turned. And I might be being really, really picky with that, but if you watch the play, like when I watched the play, I'm like, why didn't Kaminga help? Perhaps it could have got dished off to Rui, perhaps, but you got to help. You can't, you got to pay attention to what's going on. And his back was turned to the play. And so I think it's a lot of, I think basketball IQ things. Like it's not the talent. It's not the skills. I think there's a lot of mind-boggling things that drive Steve crazy, whether it's that defensive play, whether that's shot selection that drive you kind of batty with him. But the main thing, I think, is just consistency, because you see it and then it disappears. You see that 26 and then the next game it's 12. You know what I mean? It's so how do the Warriors get him to be more consistent? Is it starting? Is it bringing him off the bench? Is it a pep talk? I don't know, but it certainly is an amazing tease when you watch him play, because he has talent and skills that only the elite have, but you just don't see them on a consistent basis.
Mark, we'd love to keep this going, but the good news is I'm sure we're going to have plenty more to ask you in the coming weeks.
Man,
I
gotta
appreciate
get
your
my
time.
coffee,
And
man. I got to get my coffee, so I won't be coaching the Nuggets anytime soon, you know? Haven't had my coffee
That's
yet.
right. That's right. Me and Mark Spears are team coffee while Derek is just somehow running on adrenaline. I don't know how he's doing it.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. Why not?
I'm just not a coffee guy, man. I tried it back in my younger days, and I just don't like the taste. Just,
See, but
just not a coffee guy.
Here's the thing. What kind of coffee do you taste in your younger days?
Probably bad coffee.
Like, exactly. So one of these days, me and you're going to get together. You let me know if you're like a dessert dude or just a, you know, and I'm because it's amazing fuel, brother. It's amazing fuel. So
yeah, you
know,
and me go to the Battery one time, and we'll have a
no
cup of Joe.
question.
All right,
I got that. Let's open that mind up, man. I can't have you the gas station coffee you tried when you were 12 ruin your life, you know.
Fair enough. 7-Eleven coffee isn't enough. I got you.
Yeah. All right. Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Appreciate it.
Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, all that, guys.
Happy holidays, Mark.
Happy holidays to Mark Spears, and Derek will wrap things up on the other side. But before we do anything further, we got a funky little holiday schedule. So what does that mean? It means it is time to make you some money.
The following interview is being paid for by TakingVegas.com, and the views, opinions, and picks expressed do not reflect those of the station or its ownership.
Well, we welcome in JR of Taking Vegas. No money music going on today, but that's okay. We're going to bring the money spirit. You can text WIN to 545454 to get started. And JR, we had a shortened show yesterday because of the bowl season going crazy. A 6 overtime game went, it shortened our show by over an hour. And so I have a feeling that you want to talk a little bit of bowl madness today on a Friday.
No doubt. In fact, first off, happy holiday to everybody. I know there's a lot of holidays going on right now. Happy, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, a Happy New Year, obviously coming in right around the corner. And yes, I don't care what two teams it was yesterday. That was exciting. I mean, 6 overtimes. They stormed the field twice before they actually get a third time and then they were down. Let's face it, in the 6th overtime, in the 5th overtime, they went down by 2 points and had to come back and get another score. It was really fun. That was a fun game. Now look, today, I believe that the biggest game, or at least a blowout on the board, is going to be the last game tonight, and that is the Texas A&M USC game. So all listeners in the San Francisco area, I'm going to give you this one free. All you got to do, text the word WIN, W-I-N, to 545454. I'm going to give you the A&M USC point spread winner absolutely free. It'll be delivered via text message. As soon as you send out that text that says WIN to 545454, I'm going to hit you right back, and you're going to get the point spread winner of the Texas A&M USC game, which that line is only 3 points, A&M -3. It was 3.5 just moments ago, so the line did drag down a little. I'll let you know who's going to win, who's going to cover when you text the word WIN to 545454. And I'm wondering something, Greg, because I think you and I have hit it off great. I want to tell you what a pleasure it's been to be on your show, but did you not give me the money music because we finally lost a game last week?
Actually, I'm at home right now, so this was a whole remote production. I'm giving you the money music and spirit, but no, it had nothing to do with the loss.
I'm like, oh my goodness, we finally lost the game. I don't get my money music. What is going on? Now, look, I did love that Buccaneer pick that I gave you guys last week. That was a Sunday night football game, and if it wasn't for all the mistakes and all the missed opportunities and the absolute benign defense of the Tampa Bay Bucks, and what's funny is they still had a shot at being able to cover that game in the last 2 minutes if it wasn't for a last pick by Baker Mayfield. It really looked like we were going to be on the right side of that game. But again, Dallas smushed our dreams and did not get us home. But still, I believe we're now 12-4 or 13-4 on air. So we're definitely 75% or better as usual here on air. And momentarily, I'm going to give you another winner that you can, sink your teeth into this week. But once again, I do want you to send that word win. Text the word win to 545454, and I'm going to give you the point spread winner of this Texas A&M USC game absolutely free. And I do want to touch on this, Greg, that the importance of really understanding money management when it comes to sports betting is huge, right? I talk about it all the time. Everyone always asks, what is the benefit in dealing with a company like ours? Well, first off, of course, it's because we win. We win like crazy. Now, that doesn't mean we win every game. You have to understand money management. And if you can't lay out a proper strategy, you're going to be one of these guys that just keep paying the book every week and never collecting even remotely close to the amount that you're paying the guy. So if you want to do it right, you should have an expert who has a bit of experience, guys. I've got over 30 years in this business, over 300 years under our roof with the people and the resources, guys. It is literally for the mindset of an entrepreneur. Anybody that's a businessman or a numbers guy, they're going to love the way my system works. So step one, get the winner of Texas A&M USC absolutely free. Text the word win to 545454 to get that A&M USC winner via text message, absolutely free, no strings attached. Again, text win to 545454. And real quick, Greg, do we have time to give a free winner so people can make some money this week?
Oh, yeah, we do. We have absolutely time, and I understand it might have to do with the Las Vegas Raiders, which my co-host today, Derek Papa, has a love-hate relationship with.
Well, I think everybody. I had my father in town this week who happens to live in Vegas and said he watches the games every week just to root against them. That's how much he hates the Raiders just since he's a kid. So it is a love-hate relationship. He loves to make money with them when we're going against them, but at the same time he loves watching them lose. So what I'm doing with this game, though, this is going to be obviously the poorest game on the board. I don't see how Spencer Rattler can even put up points. Aiden O'Connell obviously on the other side of this. But I just don't see points. I mean, they're going to have to run the football. Time of possession is going to come into play. I don't see how they score more than 27 points. So this is one of those ones where don't blunder, go under, and take under 38 points. Again, that's about as low of a line as you're going to see in the NFL these days. And I'm telling you, they can't make it low enough. If this line was 35 or 34, it'd still go under. Go under the posted total of 38 in the Raiders-Saints game. That's your free pick on air. But, guys, if you really want to make some money this week, text the word win right now to 545454 and take advantage of the A&M USC winner absolutely free via text message. And once more, guys, be safe. Merry Christmas. Have a happy New Year, and go out there and make some money.
The preceding interview has been paid for by TakingVegas.com, and the views, opinions, and picks expressed do not reflect those of the station or its ownership.
From the Chilton Auto Body Traffic Desk. is KNBR, and this is Murph and Marcus on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
It's not Murph and Marcus, but it is Duran Duran, and it is Derek Papa, Greg Silver, Raf Corral, and that's just going to do it. Derek, have fun singing your tunes and enjoy the rest of your Friday. I will catch up with you next Monday.
Sounds good, Greg Silver. You have yourself a great show on Monday, minus my dad.
I sure will. Catch me at 10 a.m. with Kerry Crowley. I'll be out at Levi Stadium as the 49ers take on the Detroit Lions for Monday Night Football. Up next, the Armed Forces Bowl between Oklahoma and Navy. You're listening to KNBR and KNBR FM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station.